Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final wrap-up roundtable for Big Brother Canada 7. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
Taran, I really should have the shade sunglasses on because I am recovering after that Survivor finale that we all saw happen. It was honestly, and I think so many people shared this sentiment. It was like a bad dream. And I did think you had it said best on Twitter where you were like, I just hope that this shows people that just because something is a spectacle and unpredictable doesn't make it good. And that is definitely true because it wasn't good. But something that was interesting and good was the Big Brother Canada 7 finale. And we have gotten some more information on it since then and some of the people and in their interviews. And we're here to talk about that shit.
Yes, don't worry. We will not be touching on Survivor tonight. You don't have to worry about spoilers or anything like that. However, if you are interested in some Survivor talk, we might go on Twitch after the podcast for an after show. So stay tuned if you're interested in that Survivor talk. But also with us tonight is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing well. I'm a little disappointed that I don't feel like we have any additional information after the finale. And I feel like it's been that way for the past couple of finales, which is kind of unfortunate because they always want to hear, I just want more afterwards. And I feel like we end the season being like, okay, well, we're going to come back for a roundtable and we'll have way more information by then. And every time it's like, I just feel like we're like, okay, cool. What have we learned since then? Oh, nothing. So I'm a little upset because I really was hoping for a lot more like interviews and a lot more. I guess it's a little much to ask to have like a week out from the finale, people already be able to like reflect on their games and be like, okay, here's what I did wrong. Here's what I did right. But like, come on, I want that reflection already. So whatever, we'll be able to talk about stuff, I guess.
Yes, I will say, I do feel like with this season in particular, as opposed to, for instance, last season on Big Brother Canada 6, where I felt like the jury decision was very surprising and there were a lot of questions that we had for a lot of the members of the show, of the season. This season, things were a little more straightforward in my eyes. I feel like there aren't a lot of unanswered questions left to ask. That said, I have already spoken to Adam and Sam. I got an interview with them. I talked to them last night, which actually ate into my Survivor finale viewing time, but that's all right. So that will be coming out hopefully very soon. And I am talking with Dane tomorrow. So we'll get that in. And I'm also in communications with Anthony to get an interview with him as well to talk about everything that went down. So we will be getting some interviews soon, some more long form stuff. But like I said, I feel like this is going to be more detail oriented things than like let's solve the mystery of like what happened, because I think we saw what happened, right?
Yeah, we saw what happened. Go ahead.
But see, it's not about like, okay, like I guess it's not about like, oh, we don't know. It's that they don't know, and I want to see them react to it. Like, for example, Taran, I was yelling at my computer when I was watching you interview Kyra, because Kyra was like, no, all the moves I made were for like, I made them myself. And no, it wasn't Anthony that influenced me. It was all me. I wanted you to turn to them and be like, well, then why did you make moves that were against your own self-interest? Like, why did you do that then? If it wasn't for Anthony, then like, why? And I like was yelling at my screen being like, you gotta push her or push them hard, because that's what I want to know is like, why did they do that stuff then? Like,
yes, go ahead.
The thing is that they're sitting there like, no, Anthony didn't control me. And like, I did all this stuff on my own. And it's like, well then, but why then? Because why would you go against Adam? Like, Adam was the one person who was like wanting to keep you around. Mark was someone who was interested in keeping you around. And instead you go and you're like, I'm a loyal Anthony soldier. It's just,
Melissa, I can give you their exact answer in that moment if you want. And I think you know what their answer would be, right? Like what they would say is what they've already said, which is, well, I put Adam on the block because I was trying to get Dane out. And I knew that Adam would use the veto on Dane. And the problem was...
Then you say, but Adam was your only ally in the game at that point in time. Why would you
and
risk
why
Adam on the
blindside
block?
him?
Yes, and why
was he
blindside your
just
only
blindsided
ally?
him?
Why not talk to Adam and be like, look, this is who I want to get out, and either you're going on the block or you're not, but this is what's going to happen. And it doesn't.
And they
makes
would
me
have said
so,
Adam was not an ally. He was planning on cutting me. He was working with the pretty boys. He was loyal
And
to
then you
them,
say,
and I
okay, so
blindsided
is
him because I wanted to
Anthony-
make good TV.
You say, so is Anthony an ally? Like, I know.
No,
it's
I
not
never saw Anthony
on
as an
you, but
ally.
I'm
I
just
saw that he was
saying,
trying to manipulate me, but I was making my own decisions.
No.
No.
See how
You
quickly
pushed
this
him on
becomes
it. You
frustrating in a
pushed him on
10-minute
it.
interview?
Well, it becomes
I know,
frustrating
but
because-
it's frustrating for sure. But it's just like, I'm not
Well,
saying
it's
it's
because
your
you're not
fault.
willing to cross that bridge into being a little bit confrontational. I'm not. This isn't coming for Taran Day. You're
No.
lovely.
Taran did a great job with the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just saying, like, for all the other interviews as well, it was like they'd talk to Kyra and be like, well,
Yes.
were you upset that people viewed you as a weak player when really you were a strong player? It's like, no, they
weren't.
Like, don't sit
Stop
there and be
that.
like, you were a strong player, blah, blah, blah. Like, they were not a strong player. And like, and it's totally cool if they like recognize, like, hey, look, like I screwed up my game. But like, and everyone's like, yeah, but they got to the final 3 then, didn't they? And it's like, yeah, but they were never going to win. Like, it's just, yeah. So
yeah,
anyway.
I mean, my question to Kyra was, did you recognize how much influence Anthony had over your decisions? And Kyra's answer was, no, they were my decisions.
Which tells us
a long way of saying no was the answer in my opinion.
No.
I will say though, they were very, very sweet and very nice to talk to, and I feel like I hope that, you know, having watched the season, they will have a more sort of bird's eye view of what happened, and even if they don't, you know, it's not our job to yell at them for it if they don't want to face the fire.
Look, I don't think that any hate should go. I don't think we need to like hate on them or like say that they're bad people. I think Kyra is a great person from what I've seen on the feeds and whatever. Like, I don't have any issues with them, like, at all. It's just that, like, I want people to recognize when they made a mistake in their game, and like, and I, not in like a we need to yell at them sort of way, but just in a way where it's like, hey, you recognize that you made mistakes though, right? You recognize you didn't play a good game though, right? Like, I don't know. It's just, I get frustrated when after the season's over, like a lot of the interviews are just very like pandering to them and just like, oh, great job. I know it's like whatever, everyone's celebrating. And that's why these initial interviews are never really interesting to me. It's always like the after the fact, when they've like seen the season, they know what's going on, they know like how they were portrayed and stuff like that. Then they can kind of explain certain things that I was missing, like they're pieces in the puzzle that now need to be filled in. But you know, whatever. It's fine.
It's not fine. No, it's not fine, because I can tell from your voice that it's not fine. So I do have an instance where I was hoping that you would push Anthony further, Taran, when he said, and this is not coming for him at all. This is being real. Like, okay, we're not in the house anymore, Anthony. You don't have to talk politically speaking. You know, you can actually be real. You can be loyal to the soil for a moment, because he said, well, you know, in reference to why he didn't get any jury votes, when people go into the jury house, especially the first people in the jury house, you know, they begin to form their own narrative of what's happening in the season, and they don't have all the information. And I'm like, I just wanted Taran to say, you're talking about Sam. Like, girl, let's talk tea. You're talking about Sam. Like, let's get it out there. You got a thing for Sam. And if you didn't know that Anthony had a thing for Sam, Adam and Sam found out that Anthony had a thing for Sam when they started watching the episodes back. In fact, last night, if you guys watch on their Instagram and their Twitter, they posted on their Twitter, I think somebody else posted on their Twitter, that they were pissed at Anthony. Like, not just like kind of mad. They were pissed at Anthony for some of the things that he has had to say about Sam in the Big Brother house and the way he was plotting. Like, I don't even think it has dawned on Sam and Adam until this point that Anthony and Dane were literally plotting against Sam from the word go. Like, I think we started the podcast, we covered in the Roundtable, talking about Sam and how she could literally be out the door. That's why her score never got above, 4, I think, even though she was a relatively great player. I mean, when you combine everything, TV, strategy, likability, all of that to me. But it was like she was flying by the seat of her pants. Taran, she was lucky she made the jury. Like, let's be real.
I talked to her about that, and they actually tweeted that out shortly after I spoke to them in my interview, and I did tell them that they were plotting from the very beginning, and quite a lot. I'm sure that was on their mind.
All of it, yeah. They're just now finding out just how much their pretty boys were talking behind their back, and I think that it's honestly a bit of a rude awakening. It's one thing to hear about it. Yeah, they were trying to get your girl out, but now that he's out of the house and he's with his girl, Adam, I'm talking about, I don't think it's going to be so easy for him to watch. And they even said that they turned off the show. Like they literally stopped watching because they quote, didn't want to go to bed angry, which, oh my God, they already sound like a married couple.
Well, they did. They've gotten, I think, about 3/4 of the way through, and they have been enjoying the season up until that point. I'm very curious to know what it was exactly that set them off. I'm sure it had something to do in an episode where Anthony talked about Sam in particular, but yeah, I'd be curious to know exactly what that was. But I think it was more like a personal thing that he said than the fact that he had been going after her for a while, because they definitely knew not necessarily the entire extent of that, but they knew a lot of it. So it'll be interesting to see for sure.
What's the number one thing that you have heard or said since the finale, Taran, that surprises you, if anything?
I think that I talked to Adam and Sam about this a little bit, that they really do think that Adam probably would have won if it had been him versus Dane. That Sam was working pretty hard in the jury house, from what I hear, and she had Corey on board, she had Damien on board, and then Mark was there too, and so it really was looking like that Adam might be able to take that win if he was up there next to Dane, which makes it all the more good on Dane for being able to take Adam out when he did.
And that was so amazing, Melissa, that he was able to take him out, because remember, he had 2 competitions. All he had to do was win one of them. Yeah. And I really thought
for sure
Adam was a shoo-in to win at least one of them. And then when he lost them both, man, I'm like, that was your game. That's tough to take.
Totally. I think that that I thought for sure Adam, and I thought Dane as well. I thought it was going to end up being the two of them, because I figured no one could beat them. And I just thought that was that, and they were going to get to the end.
Well,
and
you're part right. No one could beat.
Partly right, but unfortunately, not fully.
Yeah. Also, Adam said that in that veto competition, that what we saw, that setback that we saw, where he couldn't find the card, that cost him like 10 minutes, and if he had not dropped that card, that he only lost by 4 minutes. So what a difference.
Wow. Interesting. Cool.
Too bad.
Well, yeah, man, what could have been, man? That's life, you know. I always think about Vanessa in BB17 and the Johnny Mac Dennis question. You know, she says A, Steve says B, it's B, you know, whatever. Like, that's like literally flipping a coin for $500,000, man. Come on.
Yeah. So, but it really, again, there wasn't a ton that was that surprising to me, other than Sam saying that Esty might have been a vote for Adam over Dane. Adam was like, I don't know, but Sam seemed like she thought that it was definitely possible. Corey, I guess, was, with each person coming into the jury house, getting more and more upset with Anthony.
That's the problem. Can we talk about that? Like, I mean, that out of all the votes that came during the finale, I think this is the one that surprised me the most, that she was so bitter to Anthony. But, you know, looking back on it, Doom Tribe in the chat, I'll give you credit, because you did warn me about, you know, Anthony's and his inability to win the jury vote. And I was really poo-pooing you along the way, but even I didn't see how little he was doing preparing his jurors for the eventual finale. He really needed to come clean with her in a goodbye message or something, and give her a little bit of the tea, like, you know, hey, in some sort of a way, I've been using you, to let her know, because what happens is he didn't say anything, and his goodbye message was heartfelt, and it was true. Like between you, we know that he was fighting for her, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't know what to believe. So then when she goes to the jury house, every person that's coming in saying how Anthony was finessing her and molding her, and it was his HOH. And of course, she's taken aback by that. and goes, well, what the F, Anthony? Like finesse me now, which she did in the finale. Great moment for her. I thought it was a little, whatever, but it made her look a little small in my eyes, but it was a great moment with the crowd. But that's, man, jury management is a really big thing. And, I know that we can get a little bit in the mud or in the weeds talking about jury management, but this is a classic instance of somebody who was a vote for you, who you literally with your actions turned into a vote against you because of your inability to prepare them for life in the jury house and being an advocate for you. And that was, like, to me, the number one biggest mistake that he made, especially considering if she goes into the jury house knowing that she was used by Anthony and has warm feelings for him, then it's Sam for Dane, Corey for Anthony, and then there's an agenda between the two of them. And so when Pete Esty and Damien are coming into the jury house, they could be swayed one way or the other. But when both of them are on the same side, it's really hard to fight against that. And I think that's why we got a 7-0 vote.
I think it's tricky because, like he knew how to control people when they were in front of him in the house. But then the second they would leave, it was kind of like, okay, well, out of sight, out of mind. Now they're gone. And, they're just going to figure it out or whatever. And he didn't like set it up properly. He kind of set himself up for failure by just being like, okay, well, they're out of the game, see ya, and not really preparing the goodbye messages like Adam did. I mean, Adam's goodbye messages were the most impressive to me this season, in my opinion. He every goodbye message I felt was better than the last in terms of giving details, telling who was in the alliance, being also heartfelt about it. So he wasn't just like rubbing it in people's faces. I just thought he did a great job with the goodbye messages, and people should learn from that.
Yeah, Anthony was a lion. He controlled everything in front of him, but as soon as he lost sight of them, they were free. Dane, he was like a hawk. Yeah, he could see everything at all times. One thing that Sam told me was that during the questions at the finale, Corey did lean over and say something along, I don't remember the exact wording, but said something along the lines of, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like Anthony was actually swaying her in the moment during the questioning. And Sam said that for sure, if Anthony had more time, he probably could have been able to swing Corey back over to his side.
That makes me feel sad because you went to the finale, Taran, with Matt Liguori, and you felt like it was rushed. I felt like it was rushed on television, but I'm like, well, maybe it was just edited to be that way, but apparently not so. And dude, this is a taped show. Like they could spend 10, 15 more minutes with these people and let them ask the questions that they need to, and just cut out the questions that are important. That's all you need to do. Just give them 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
The problem is, like I said before, that Big Brother Canada, from what I saw, they're exactly like The Price is Right. When I went to The Price is Right, they tape to live is what they call it, where they're taping at about the same pace of the live show. So it feels when you're in studio like it's a live show and they're going at that pace, but it's not really. So to be honest, they're just being kind of lazy. Like they could edit the show in that instance. And, it's literally, Taran, you're a video editor. It's literally like cut. Like all you have to do is cut out the questions. It's that easy. And they just seem unwilling to do it. I'm hoping maybe we can get that changed in the future, but don't hold your breath.
Please. That is my biggest pet peeve with Big Brother is the finale episodes are just so terrible. They build up the season for so long. They've got, you have 90 whatever days in the house. Well, for Big Brother US at least. Yeah. And, it's all, and then some of the episodes are just so boring. Like, they do a whole recap episode where we've already seen it and they add literally nothing new. And then just to rush along the finale as if it's garbage. And as if like it doesn't even matter who the winner is because all we're gonna do at the end is just throw confetti in their face and then have the credits roll. It's like it's just unfortunate how it's just treated so terribly at the end.
Well, and then they do such a good job with the debrief the next day when they literally have all the house guests on stage. Of course, it isn't the best thing that I would like for them to do, but it's a really good appetizer of what I think could, be gotten from the Big Brother Canada coverage. Mm-hmm. For those of you who didn't watch the debrief, it was the next day with Arissa and Arissa was there with a gentleman. I can't remember his name, but he's a fan of the show and he hosts it sometimes. And they have all the house guests there. And they were asking them questions. The most cringy moment was when this girl in the audience asked them to sing the "Oh My God" song, and it's like 9 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God, like don't do it. Other than that, though, I thought,
like that they did that. I mean, not the singing, but I like that they do the debrief thing.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think that we definitely need that for Big Brother US. Like, I mean, come on, it's so easy to do. They're already there. They're still under contract. Just like put them in a room together and ask them some questions. I don't know.
It's so nice, especially like when they ask about other jury votes. Like they asked, hey, if it was Kyra versus Anthony, and the jury, it was like 6-1 or something. And I, to this day, I was just helping out Steve with his list of like how season outcomes would have changed if the other person had won part 3 of the final 3 HOH. And I was like, I mean, I think Godfrey beats Ashley in the jury vote, and that's a very controversial take. And I went back to the debrief, the morning show after Big Brother Canada 3, where they polled the jury, and it was a 5-4 vote for Godfrey to win. And it's like, that is such great information to have, to be able to pull back on. That's just so much more unreliable when you wait longer and you ask people individually and all of this stuff. So I really enjoy that they do it.
That was so bad though, when they were like, oh, who would have voted for Adam? But they had it on a close up and they were like, yes. Oh, wow. And you couldn't see who was raising
the worst.
That was the worst.
I was so mad.
We need a wide, because it was like literally you could only see like 3 people and then you hear Arissa going like, oh, wow. Okay. And I was like, but what is the answer? Who would have voted for Adam? What is it? But I was like, pull back.
I was literally screaming.
I know. I was like, I want to know. But oh well, we'll have to ask Arissa, I guess. Like, Arissa,
I forgot to ask. I mean, like I said, Adam and Sam were fairly convinced that Adam had it. So I feel like if that number had been in favor of Dane, then they would have said so. Yeah,
that's true. They already seen that. They know.
Yes. So that very interesting stuff there. Anything else that we should talk about from the season? I mean, just from the finale, from what happened. I really did enjoy that for that final part of the final 3 HOH competition. It was very cool looking. But yeah.
Yeah. I'll just say this really quickly, that I don't know that I hold as much animosity or whatever you want to call it towards Kyra, because they haven't seen the season yet. They don't know. So for Melissa, and I'm not, I don't want you to feel like I'm coming for you on this. Like, I hear where you're coming from about Kyra, but on the other hand, it's their experience. Like, they experienced Anthony like incepting them into these ideas from their recollection. It's like, oh, I did come up with that idea. Like, that was my decision.
Yeah, no,
I realized that Anthony was literally like sprinkling little, like, I know what you're gonna do if I tell you this, that kind of thing.
No, I have no animosity towards Kyra either at all. I just always wish when I'm watching the interviews that the interviewer would like push them on things and like get to the heart of it. But at the same time, like, if I was interviewing them, who knows if I would actually do that, or if I'd just be like, cool, thanks. The next question, like, I don't know if I would. But from when I'm sitting in my own house in the comfort of my own home, of course, I'm going to armchair quarterback it and be like, hey, ask this question. Why aren't you asking this follow-up? But no animosity towards Kyra at all. Like, Kyra seems like a fine, great person from what I've seen. It's just that, like, I always want to be like, but why? Why'd you do that?
Well, I mean, I'll just say this, like, this is no shade at Taran, but it's hard to do follow-up journalism. I mean, it really is.
Oh, like, totally.
Like, when you're asking somebody a question and they have a narrative of their own, it is so hard to, not impossible, but difficult to ask a question in a way where you don't sound like a total bitch. When you're trying to push back on what you obviously see as fiction from their answers.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, like, not to like give Taran too much props, but I really did. I thought he did such a great job in terms of being able to keep a conversation going with these interviews. I feel like I would be like stuck or I'd have to like, look down at notes or something to like figure out what I wanted to talk about next, but I felt like the conversations flowed so naturally. I was very impressed. Good job, Taran.
For those of you who have watched RuPaul's Drag Race over the past week, in reference to Taran's interviews, I'll just say, meh.
Taran, I'll say more than meh.
I'm sorry. It was a little joke there, Taran. There's a little. You don't watch Drag Race, and you were obviously traveling, but there was a lip sync that happened. It was a really terrible lip sync on the show. And for the first time in 11 seasons, RuPaul ended it with meh, like that, because it was literally so bad. So that's become a bit of a meme, or a meme, as the show would say.
Oh my God.
Kennedy Davenport.
Oh boy.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, so I mean, I people are asking me more about my experience. I think I told you most of the experience from Toronto when I talked about it on the finale night from Toronto. I don't remember if I talked about being in the backyard. I did get a chance to talk with Adam, and I did get to tell him about Matt Hoffman and how he had been watching along and following the season and the Pretty Boys. And Adam was like a kid in a candy. He was so excited. He was like, "Oh my, Matt Hoffman, Dane, did you hear that? Did you hear that, Dane? Matt Hoffman watched us." It was so fun. It was so good. I'm sorry I ruined that moment. I'd planned on using it later with Dane, so I didn't have it recorded in any way. So when I brought it up to Dane later, it was like, "Oh yeah, cool," because you already told me.
Well, yeah, all you have to do to get a reaction out of Dane is tell him that Tiger Woods won the match.
Yes,
that was when he really went off the rails.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Adam, and all of a sudden Dane was just like, "Yes, yes, that's my boy." And I was like, "What is happening?" Tiger Woods. Yeah, they
that was
released
a pretty
that
funny video where they found out the various things that had occurred or whatever. Like they did the true or false. It was like, did this happen? Did this not happen? I thought that was great. It was literally like, I thought it was really funny because it was like they got them all wrong. Well, Adam was
pretty good. Yeah,
most of them were pretty wrong.
Yes. I did also get a picture with the Final Four. That was very nice. In front of the house, we did get a chance to go into the house. I sat in one of the final two chairs. It was very fun. All that stuff was great. The next day, I went to the chorus building. I got a chance to interview the final three. It was great sitting down with them. They were bringing people in, pulling them out. So it was a little difficult to get everything set up and get everything working, and it was also like, I don't know how much time I have with each person, so I did my best. I thought it went pretty well. I really enjoyed the experience. They were all really, really great to talk to, and I had a good time talking to each of them. And then yeah, thank you.
You'd like to spend time with all the Big Brother Canada alumni as well.
Yes. Then Kevin gave me the invite to the Airbnb, the podcast house of Big Brother Canada, where he was hanging out with Bruno and Bobby and Maddie and Allie and Ashley and Paris. And
can we talk about that real quick? Did you Ashley, girl, looks amazing. But she does look different to me. Like, did she have work done, or did she just change her hair, or
I think her hair's just a different color.
She's just gotten older. I mean,
also she's not in a house anymore.
Well, yeah, that's true. But Ashley definitely looks.
She dyed her hair dark, right?
Yeah.
Didn't she?
Yeah, but I so her face to me looks a little bit different. Maybe she's just doing her makeup. After watching Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race I'm talking about, I really see how makeup, even subtle changes or the way you shape things can really change your overall shape. So
totally.
Yeah.
And so can hair color too.
Yeah,
for real. Yeah.
But yeah, all of the women in that house extremely beautiful. So that was fun. We played some games. We played charades. That was interesting. And then we went to a club. That was the meetup, where the big party meetup thing. And it was a very strange experience to go to the club because the security was more intense than airport security. got touched in places I don't want to be touched.
Really?
And then I got in there, and it was like deafeningly loud and bright lights flashing.
Taran loves this, you guys. He's such a party boy.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, this is my scene. Here we go. But it was like we were supposed to be meeting people and talking to people. I had a bunch of people come up to me like, hey. And I was like, can't hear you. Just gonna nod.
Yeah, I feel like that's not the best place for a meetup.
It wasn't.
Like,
I didn't.
Club.
Yeah, I didn't talk to a single person that was like, yeah, this is great.
No, yeah, nobody would be able to hear anything. Yeah, I feel like a more casual bar is probably better. But...
Yeah, they said this was the worst by far. This was not the best location there. But I did get to talk to a few great people.
And you got to meet Blonde Hamza.
Blonde Hamza. We did a no smiling picture because they said that Hamza never smiles in pictures.
Funny. I enjoyed that very much. That was my favorite picture of the bunch that you posted.
Right?
Yeah.
I posted a bunch of the photos on Instagram if you want to find them. It's Taran_Armstrong. Got to talk to Johnny. Johnny was amazing. He came up. He was like, "Oh my God, Taran, I'm so happy to see you."
Does he hate us?
No, what? No.
And by us, I
Sure,
mean
he loves us.
more Brent.
We come on. We have sung his praises. Come on, like I came for him and called him bitter, but then he came back and owned his shit, and I was like I so appreciated Johnny because he could own his shit and he could defend his point. Like when I have a point, like here's what I saw you say this on day 39, blah 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 blah. You know, and then you did this on day 72, blah 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 blah. He had answers for me, and so this is why I did what I did. This is why I voted the way I did. And shove it, Brent. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I get
the
you.
fact that he came on to defend himself and to also go through his game. I mean, I thought he was great. I was appreciative of that. I mean, that's what we want someone who will come on and explain why they did what they did and like what moves they made and why. And it was just great.
Yes. So it was a lot of fun. I did meet some great listeners. There were actually some listeners that had been waiting outside the club because it was so annoyingly hard to get in for the whole time. That by the time I left,
humble brag about how hard it is to get into the club that Taran was at. Oh my God. Okay, go ahead. I got it.
Okay. It was frustrating. They were waiting outside the whole time. By the time I came out, they were like, "Oh, hey, Taran, we've been waiting."
Oh my God.
But I feel like, even though they were waiting outside in the cold, at least had a chance to have somewhat of a conversation with me, unlike most of the people in the club.
Oh, wow, Taran, another brag. They were waiting outside in the cold, but at least they got to talk to me.
Yes.
Oh, they stayed through the cold and the wind to have a conversation with me. Thank you, Melissa.
Well, as they're pointing out in the chat, Anthony did say that I was a lion, so
yeah, you know
it is important to be humble.
The comment that I saw in the chat earlier, which made me just LOL, is Taran is alpha as F. And I'm like, have you met this boy?
What are you gonna do?
Come on, man.
Taran's alpha now. He's different.
I've always been alpha.
He was a lion. No, ever since you became a lion.
Oh, well, I've always been a lion. I've always been a lion. I mean,
Taran goes up to Canada for 5 minutes and becomes a lion.
Stay humble, Taran.
I'm so alpha. I don't need to go to clubs. I don't even need to. I don't care. That's what being a lion is. It's being able to be who you are and not adhering to society's standards. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and in particular, all of those great people at the Airbnb, the Big Brother Canada 3, and extra. It was mostly Big Brother Canada 3, but also 4 and 2 and 5. Kelsey was there; she was great.
Oh, Kelsey, I didn't see her. Good.
Yes. They were all so nice and so welcoming. It was a really, really great time. I really enjoyed spending that time with them. So thank you to them. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then I got home and immediately got sick for days.
That's not good. That's bad.
That was not fun.
Well, that was good timing though. When you got sick when you got back, because it's you have a break in the morning updates, and you got done with your trip, and there's nothing to cover. We weren't doing anything with Survivor. I can't believe we didn't do anything with Survivor this year. But on the other hand, kind of glad we didn't do anything with Survivor this year. So anyway, moving on.
What are you gonna do? So that was my trip. It was serious. It was really great. I met so many great people, and again, very very grateful to the patrons of Rob as a Podcast for making those things happen, and excited to hopefully do some more in the future. So that's what I had from Toronto. I did release the final wrap up survey. Are we ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we?
Yes.
We rated the players, gave them a final rating for the whole season.
We did? Oh, I didn't know we did.
Yes.
We did.
Some people didn't do their homework.
No, I didn't, but I'll do it. And right now.
Oh. I mean, I didn't know we were supposed to. I thought it was everybody else. I mean, I really didn't know. Go ahead. So
yes,
we'll deal with it.
So we're gonna give the players their final ratings. Give them what we think of them at the end of the day here. Let's go in reverse order of when they were evicted. We'll start easy here. We'll start with Laura, who is the first out. We did not really see much from her. The audience gave her a 2, and I feel like that's pretty appropriate from what little we saw.
I mean, I'll give her a 1 just because I'm still pissed at her from the finale for talking absolute bullshit, like blowing smoke out of her ass. And it's one thing if you don't know you're doing it, like Kyra is. Like Kyra doesn't know that they're blowing smoke out of their ass. Laura definitely knew, and she still did it anyway.
Yeah. Not a great answer when that's your 1 minute to say something about the season and
you lie and
you're
kiss
just
ass
like,
with the people that voted you out.
Great, amazing season.
Not a good look. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mackie was next. Mackie, he came very close. I think this is the lowest average rating I've ever seen from the audience. A 1.73. Very close to a 1. Yeah. I would give Mackie a 1.
1, you don't get to tell the HOH who's in power, who's going to have potential tie-breaking vote, that you would maybe put him up on the block next week. And the funny part is, even after you said that to Dane, Mackie, he was still going to keep you. It was only after he went to Anthony and brought up Anthony's name as a possibility that things started to flip, and that's when your boys started to flip. And then eventually they forced you into breaking your word. Again, I go back to this because he talked. I'll say this about Dane, man. It takes a special kind of cold-hearted bitch, and I say this in the best way possible, to be able to talk yourself into believing that you were loyal to the people you needed to be loyal to. Because he lied up and down the highway. He really did. Up and down the house, Dane lied, I'm talking about. And to hear him in these interviews, it's like, oh, well, I was loyal to the people that I need to be loyal to. But you really weren't, because you weren't loyal to Adam. You don't get to cut Adam at 4 when you promised him 3 and say you're loyal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gameplay. Just own your shit. And I was a little irritated that I feel like he's sort of getting to have his cake and eat it too, because of course the jury awarded him the win 7-0. So who gives a care what Brent Wolgamott thinks? But it does irritate me that he doesn't seem to appreciate his complete hypocrisy when it comes to his view of how, the things that he could do that were okay, but the things that other people could do that weren't okay. I know he's saying, yeah, I lied and that didn't feel good at times, but I don't feel like he has fully, wrapped around. Here's the thing, Taran. I don't think he's wrapped his head around the fact that he's such a good liar. He's such a big liar. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want him to just not be so Pollyanna about it, where he's like, you're giving me a look, so what do you think?
Well, I mean, you said a similar thing on finale night, and I still don't necessarily, I guess, fully understand where that comes from. I feel like I'm going to be talking to him tomorrow. I feel like if I ask him, hey, do you admit that you were a liar and that you weren't loyal to Adam? I think he'd be like, yeah, I was. And I was loyal to Adam until I betrayed him.
Because when listening to him in the interviews, he's like, no, I was loyal to Adam. I was loyal to Adam. I really was.
He was up until he betrayed Adam.
That doesn't, you can't have, that's...
Well, I guess what I mean is that when I was talking to Sam and Adam, and I told them that that Mark and Anthony were actually planning on making a move against Adam at the double eviction, they were pretty surprised, and they were like, oh wow, I wonder if, I mean, Anthony, why didn't they approach Dane? If Anthony had approached Dane, then I would have been gone, because he could have used the veto and I would have been gone. And I said, well, I don't think that Dane would have been down for that yet. I think he was still loyal to you at that point. And that's what I mean when it's like, it's not like Dane was not loyal to Adam throughout the entire season. I do think that is genuinely a distinction to be made there. I think he was loyal to Adam up until a point, at which point he was more loyal to somebody else, and he was more loyal to himself, and he decided to go against that loyalty with Adam. And I think he would admit that.
I don't know that he would. We'll see tomorrow when you talk to him.
What do you do? What do you do when you're wrong though? Like you're making these assumptions saying that he's not being great.
Well, no,
I just feel like he is saying like I've been loyal to all the people that I was loyal to, and it's like, well, you weren't, but you were loyal to Anthony. So I think that Brent's trying to say that like we would respect it more if he was like, I was loyal to myself and to Anthony, and that was my plan all along. Everybody else, like, I wasn't loyal to them because I cut them all.
Well, yeah, I agree with that too. But I do think there is a distinction to be made between I was never loyal to anybody; they were completely disposable to me, and what Dane did, which was he was more loyal to his people, and the people that he wasn't loyal to were disposable to him, and then he brought his people as far as he could, and then he cut them at the appropriate times. And I think that is a major difference there. And you know, I don't know if you want to call it loyal or.
In the chat where they said that everybody was loyal as long as it benefited them. Yeah, that's how I feel about Dane in general, is that as long as it benefited him. Like if he cut if he cut Adam too soon, I think that the damage, and without any support, because he didn't necessarily know that everybody else was plotting against Adam, that I don't feel like he felt like that there would be any support from him if he broke that seal on the pretty boys that quickly. Like if he targeted Adam during the double eviction, I feel like that he probably thinks that. So I do think that what Franchise says is probably pretty true, that he was as loyal to people as he could be up until it was no longer good for his game, and then he has to cut them, which is definitely the way you play Big Brother, and I appreciate that. Just a little bit more ownership over his deceptiveness, I think, would probably be in order. Because it reads very like I'm just a wild and crazy guy in the interviews, and that's not what I saw in the house. I saw a very strategic, formed scenarios on what he wanted to do and things that he needed to have happen. Anyway. You're pursing your lips. Go ahead.
Oh, to me, it's like Andy at the end of Big Brother 15 said, "I've been loyal to Gina Marie all season long. We've had a secret final too.
Well,
I've been so loyal to Gina Marie." But then Andy's gonna come out of the season and say, "I wasn't loyal to her at all. Of course not. She was completely disposable to me." And I do think there's a difference between Andy and Gina Marie and Dane and Adam, where Dane was loyal to Adam for like 95% of the game, whereas Andy was never loyal to Gina Marie in any way, shape, or form. And so like I do think that there should be a way to describe that, and just because he hasn't like mastered the verbiage of like this is exactly what I mean when I say that I was loyal to Adam but up until a point, doesn't mean that he's not trying to like own things.
I just feel like, well, I'm not saying that he's not trying to own things. I just think that like I would respect it more if it was like, hey, I did what I had to do. I ultimately was only loyal to Anthony and myself, but there were people that I worked with along the way to get there.
I think the way that he views them is there's like a hierarchy of loyalty where like it was like Anthony's at the top, and then like the pretty boys are right underneath, and then like Esty and Damien, and then everybody else. Like, and as long as he generally went in that order, I feel like he's okay with that. And of course, it comes off to us, especially me and you, as sounding hypocritical, but it comes off to Taran as that's just him doing the best he can do. So
yeah, like I think that if I approached him with this exact conversation, he'd be like, I mean, I can call it whatever you want me to call it, but this is what happened. I was working with Adam until I betrayed Adam. I feel like it's kind of it's kind of semantics at some point. Like
I just feel like a lot of the interviews, at least with Dane and with Anthony and all them, they're like pretty boys to the end. Like, I played a really loyal game and da-da-da, but it's like not pretty boys to the end. Like, you guys cut the pretty boys. Like, you cut Adam before you needed to. Like, I mean, they not before they needed to, but before it was pretty boys to the end. It wasn't like that was the only option or something and they had to get rid of Adam or another pretty boy. Like, they just were saying like, I played a really loyal game. It's like, well, no, you didn't play a really loyal game. And I just wish that people would be more open about like, yeah, I did what I had to do, and I
played a really deceptive game.
Yeah,
I think it's
like Victoria on Survivor. Like, you never should have trusted me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's semantics, because I don't think somebody like Victoria was ever loyal to anybody that she worked with, whereas they were loyal to each other for most of the game.
I think Adam played a loyal game.
Sure, and I would say that Adam can absolutely say that with no compunction whatsoever. But I think that again, when Dane is talking, he's probably just like, hey, I was loyal for 95% of the game. That was a distinct quality of the game that he played up until the very, very end. And then he turned on the Alliance, which is a very different game than a like not loyal to anybody, willing to backstab whoever, cutting people loose all the time kind of game, which I don't think is the game that Dane played.
I don't think he played a cutthroat game. I don't think that at all. I don't think though that he played a loyal game.
Right. Like, I would agree. I would say Adam played a loyal game and Dane didn't. But when I say that, I recognize that I'm using the semantics of like how I define loyal game versus how other people might use it when they're just answering, casual questions about their game on the show. So I think that we'll find out.
Melissa, and I feel like a fair portion of the chat is with us. I don't think it's
with every time with this.
No. I didn't say a majority. I just said there's some people in the chat that are with us, and
there are always people in the chat that are on both sides of every issue.
No, that's not true either. That's not true either. There's some times where people are definitely against me.
We can agree to disagree, and everyone's going to disagree with you, Taran. But
my real feelings on this are that I feel like that Melissa and I, when we have an opinion sometimes on something that we feel like is particularly valid. And I say this to you with all love. I don't want anybody to think I'm hating on you, but you can come off a little condescending sometimes, Taran, where you're like, yeah, you're just looking at us like we're stupid. And like, we're not stupid.
I like it.
It kind of feels like that.
32 Mr. Toad in the chat says, Brent and Melissa, just agree with Taran so you can get on to the next topic.
Well, that's what it feels like to us guys in the chat. So it's like, but Taran,
I was literally trying to move on to the next topic.
People think that Taran would be great in a reality show, and I'm telling you what, this is his Achilles heel, man. His Achilles heel, because he doesn't have this gear where he can just agree with you, or like he cannot do that.
If you don't think I can do that, then you have no idea who I am, because I do that constantly with you, Brent.
All right, well, good. Well, tell me the next time it happens, and then we can talk.
It's happening literally right now because we're moving on from the subject because this is very uncomfortable.
Oh my God!
So let's move on. Let's move on, and let's talk about Kaylin, who was the next person here. Kaylin, who received a 3 from the audience. I don't know.
That was my score for Taran.
Okay. So Melissa, what was your read on that?
For Kaylin?
Yes.
Yeah, for Kaylin.
Yeah. Kaylin, I'd give Kaylin a 2. I just feel like Kaylin was entertaining at parts, like, trying to stir things up or whatever. But I just feel like they didn't know when was a bad time and when was a good time and all that sort of stuff. So I just think that I wasn't super impressed with their game.
Yes.
Yeah, I really wasn't impressed with their game either. They talk a big game and they had a lot to say, and their exit from the house was something that I could certainly appreciate. Like, if you're not going, if you know you're definitely going, then at least make it an eventful exit and drop a few bombs on the way out the door. And she definitely gave me that, so I'm definitely not going to give her a 1, but I think a 3 is probably a pretty appropriate score for her.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably go with a 3. I do think that she was capable of mounting a campaign. She was influential in her own way. I think that really, and she knew this, that her biggest flaw was her age, that she just doesn't fit in age-wise with a majority of the House, and so that's always going to be detrimental to her. But I would go with a 3. I think she has more potential in this game than some of the other people that we've seen play it. So that's what I would personally go with there. Next was Chelsea.
The person I took first in my draft.
Yes, the biggest flop of the draft.
She's such a flop. She was terrible. Like, and I'm so mad. Like, I'm literally thinking back to the last week that she was in the House. Remember, she was coming off an HOH, and she just laid down and died because of Kyra and the emotional beatdown that she was getting from Kyra. Like, that is the tea. She gave up, y'all. I'm gonna give her a 1. I'm gonna give her the 1. I'm just like, I know those of you out there are like, Brent, you just made that paddle so you can use it. You're right. I like using it. I'm gonna give her a 1. She deserves it. She played terrible, and she gave up on her way up the door when she had a chance to stay. Girl, bye. Okay.
I'm torn between like a 3, maybe a 4. I feel like if she went back in the House, she would play a lot better, I think, and maybe trust her gut more. But I just feel like she didn't play the way we were hoping she would play. And then you're right, when she was like, I'm over it, like, I'm gonna go home, it was disappointing. I mean, yeah, it's like, well, what really is she going to do at a certain point? But I just wasn't, I don't know, between a 3 and a 4, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like I'd probably go with a 4 for Chelsea. I think that she did have unrealized potential. I think that her eviction week was kind of like
it soured me on her a little.
Yeah,
really
like it was very bad. But I do think the circumstances were kind of unique in what she was dealing with Kyra, and she did run up against basically a brick wall here. Where she was facing the pretty boys, who really just had a whole game plan heading into the game that she was not prepared for. I do think that she's somebody that if she went back, that she would be much better off. I think that she would learn a lot from her mistakes. But even just coming in from the start here, I feel like if the playing field had been a little more even, I feel like she would have had a decent chance to do well. And that's me giving her a 4 below average there. So
yeah, I mean, like, part of me is just like, you have to play the hand that you were dealt, and it does ring true to me what the chat is saying, that Kyra really drained Chelsea and really put them on the defensive in such a way where she really had to make a choice. Chelsea, I'm talking about. She had to make a choice about how she was going to play this game, and she just chose to give in and worry. She chose to worry more about how Canada viewed her than how, like, the people in the game or the people watching online viewed her, and that really struck a sour chord with me. On the other hand, I've never been a reality show contestant where, like, literally the whole world's coming for you. And from her perspective, if she really came after Kyra, like, let's say that they're an underdog that, everybody in Canada is rooting for. Fat chance. But she doesn't know that, though. Let's say everybody's rooting for Kyra, and it's like an amazing story, and it's the first non-binary person to enter the Big Brother house, and Canada is behind them, and they were. But not as much as maybe they thought. And so Chelsea has to make a choice about how hard she's going to play. And she chose to give up. And I get where she's coming from. But I'll say this, if you're going to make that choice, then don't go on the show. Because you never know when you're going to be confronted with a situation like this that is uncomfortable in real life. And I'm still disappointed in her about that.
Yes, well, it's the way things go sometimes.
Isn't it, though? Gosh,
yeah,
people just let you down, man.
Yeah, and then you just have to move on to the next topic. Eddie was next. Eddie had a 3 from the audience. I would give Eddie a 4 personally.
Eddie a 3.
I also feel like Eddie had more potential in the game than he was able to show. I think that with a different cast, with a different setup, I feel like he might have a better shot. Again, this is still below average. I think he has a lot of room to improve here, but I do think I would personally go with a 4 from Eddie. Melissa?
I would go with a 3.
Yeah.
I was disappointed with Eddie's game. In the beginning, I was really interested in his game, and I thought that he was just laying low in the beginning. But then there were a few, maybe like few days or weeks or whatever, where he wasn't socializing really with people and wasn't really making those bonds. And I just feel like he kind of took his foot off the gas for a little bit. And you really can't do that, especially if you're not like in the majority alliance or anything. I was excited when he would start talking to, he had the right idea in his head, but he didn't know how to bring those ideas to people, and he didn't know how to get people to work with him. Whereas instead he would just bring these crazy ideas to people like, we're the underdogs, we need to fight. Are you going to fight? Without actually like trying to create some sort of alliance or something. And it just was a little disappointing. So I got to give a 3 because I don't know if he would do any better in another season.
Yeah, I'm with Melissa on this one. I know Eddie watches the podcast, and he's certainly been giving me all the tea in China on Twitter. But on the show, honey, you were a little bit of a dud. It really didn't play well to me. I feel like that, watching you on the feeds, that you did go into seclusion sometimes. And I know that you have your reasons for that. And I know what you've said on Twitter. But other times I feel like that there were openings for you and you chose not to take them, or chose to maybe just, as Melissa said, take your foot off the gas a little bit. I don't think you always have to have your gas, on the accelerator in the Big Brother house, but you have to know when you have to have your foot on the accelerator. And when you don't, you run, and it's a wrong time, you run the risk of being, quickly removed from the house in a double eviction, which you never saw coming. And that's still too bad. But your look at the finale was giving me everything. And so I'll give you a 10 for that. But it's a 3 overall.
Yes. Well, I hope the 4 wasn't too high to everyone that disagreed, but I didn't. I don't know if I understood the question properly, so I just kind of went with a 4. That was my game plan there, and that's an Eddie reference. Next up was Kiki.
That didn't play
Next
well.
up was Kiki. All right, Brent, calm down. It was dry. It's called dry humor.
It was very dry.
Yes.
I need a little Coca-Cola after that.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you.
I
Brent just hates me this podcast. It's very upsetting. Next up was Kiki. Kiki had a 3.3 from the audience. This one I might even go lower on. Kiki was somebody that I feel like, again, probably had potential, but I feel like Kiki, unlike Chelsea and unlike Eddie, I feel like she had an opportunity to live that potential out multiple times. And
Many times.
I feel like she just continually failed the prompt. Like every single time she had an opportunity, she just flushed it down the drain. And so I'd probably go with 2 there for Kiki. You agree, Brent?
I do. And she's like, to hear her tell of it. I mean, her version of events from the house is she was fighting the good fight for all of us loyalists on Twitter, and she knew what was happening. And if Sam hadn't targeted her, blah blah blah. But girl, it's bullshit. I'm sorry, it is. It's such bullshit. There was nobody that I could see that you were really loyal to. There's some people on Twitter who are trying to make an argument that, well, you were. The week that you were evicted, Kiki, I'm talking about, you were loyal to Sam, but I don't really remember it that way. I remember you as saying anything you need to do, like saying to Sam, yeah, I'm loyal to you, I'm willing to work with you, but then behind her back being like, yeah, we totally need to get her out. So, no, it's not working for me. And it's actually, she's somebody who has looked worse. Like Eddie, to me, has gotten better as he's come onto social media and explained his game. And I feel a little bit better about some of the choices that he made in the house. Kiki, on the other hand, honey, like as delusional as Kyra.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with Kiki's game, unfortunately. It's between a 2 and a 3 for me, I guess. She had a good read sometimes on the house, and then would do nothing with it.
Like Kyra had a good read most of the time.
Right.
Rockstar had a good read sometimes.
Right.
Yes,
totally. But she would do nothing with it. And then she didn't fight for the blood veto when that was like a clear chance for her to make sure she stayed
Thank
in
you
the
for
house.
bringing that up. That's
yeah.
the one that I just pisses
She
me off.
also-
1 week before jury, you have that in front of you. Sit your ass out in the backyard for 10 days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And
Ugh.
she didn't know how to get along with people that she didn't like. So like she would make it well known that she was annoyed with Mark or wouldn't even like speak with him.
Yep.
And it's like you need to do what you can to make people like you in that house.
Nope,
and
she had no interest in that.
she
Why
just
is it
didn't
so
care.
hard? I'd
She
rather
just-
talk to Canada.
yeah, and all she wanted to do was talk with Esty all day long, and it's like you gotta do something more than that. So I was pretty disappointed with her, especially considering how excited I was about her pregame.
I will say, her and Esty are adorable, and I enjoy their friendship.
Oh, they are really. I wasn't sure which way you were going with that one, but yeah, their friendship. Yeah, sorry. Well, I thought it was out of character for you to say something like that, but you never know. You're a wild and crazy guy.
I'm too condescending to call people adorable.
Really?
I guess.
Oh my God, you're really offended by that. Like, just wait. Before we go on, like,
okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made the joke. We don't need to.
You can make the joke. I had no problem with the joke.
All right. Let's.
They're not gonna understand.
Okay. But let's move on and talk about Sam. Sam, who is I think somebody very fun to talk about. Sam. I'm very excited to talk about Sam. The audience is really excited about Sam. They gave her a 5.8, a 6 average here from the audience, which I think is probably the highest rating she like ever got all season long, because she was like on death's door for most of the season. It felt like.
But we never wanted to give her a good score.
Yeah,
because
we thought
she was going at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I do think the audience is onto something here. I think obviously part of this is that they like Sam. Sam is very popular. But I do think that Sam had a lot of potential that just obviously could not be realized in any way, because she was just completely tied down by the pretty boys and by her connection with Adam, which in some ways kept her safe, but in other ways made her a huge target. And I feel like, yes, she did make a target of herself in week 1 with the Laura stuff. She was a target for people. She made a target even bigger on her back by taking Laura out in the method that she did. However, I feel like she was able to recover from that in some ways, and I think that yes, maybe she will go home early in a lot of seasons because of that early aggressive gameplay. But I feel like she can also recover in a lot of seasons, and I think that without the pretty boys there just being such a dominant force against her, she had the skills to move further. She was getting Corey closer to her the week that she was HOH. She was positioning herself to be in a pretty good spot moving forward, if not for Anthony and Dane and what they were able to do. So yes, it's a lot of ifs, but I would say at least a 5 for me from Sam. I think she has potential to be higher, but I would go at least average from Sam for me. What about you, Melissa?
Yeah, I agree. I'm between a 5 and a 6 essentially, because for all the points you said, I think she was a good player. I think that she had a good read on the house. I think that she was able to, it was one of those things where it was like, it was good for her that she aligned with Adam, but also bad for her that she aligned with Adam. And I felt like that kind of like put the kibosh on her, making any big, going after any of the boys. Whereas if maybe Adam wasn't part of the pretty boys and there was just this guys alliance separately, like maybe with Damien or something, I feel like she could have rallied troops to get them to go against those guys because she recognized it was going on. But Adam wasn't letting it happen because he was more loyal to the boys. So it was just like a bad situation, but I could see her being a strong player. So that's why I'm in between like a 5 and a 6 for her.
And I do want to quickly point out that Sam is one of the few people outside of the pretty boys that could have won the game if she made it to the end, which is not true of a lot of the other players this season. And she also, I think, showed her some of her capability in the jury house. She was clearly a very influential voice in there and really set the tone in a lot of ways. And I think that also goes to show some of the potential that went a little bit unrealized in the season.
100% Air Tempest in the chat. Sam was easily the best woman of the season. I totally agree.
Totally.
She was
Out of 5.
out of 5. It's so sad.
That is sad.
I'll give her a 6. Entertainment value alone, I feel like that she was really bringing it, and she was giving me everything that you want in a Big Brother player. She was trying to be strategic. She was trying to think about the game rationally. She wanted to have her showmance. She was trying to build alliances. She was being feisty, winning competitions. I mean, this is like my wet dream of like what I want from a contestant in the Big Brother house. So, like, I mean, come on. And also, she really let's the real tea is that she would have been okay, because she was making strides with Corey. The problem is she ran into a buzzsaw in Anthony, a really fantastic player who talked about in one of his interviews how when this whole thing about the Corey backdoor plan happened and he knew that it was Dane, he specifically let up on the gas to let it breathe. Like, he didn't immediately go and address the situation, but he knew that he had to get his hands around it and get the blame on to Sam and say that Sam was the one who was thinking about backdooring Corey during her HOH. He knew it was Dane, but yet he kept all of the stink off of Dane and made sure it went on to Corey. That caused that was the end of Sam's game when Corey became HOH, because remember, going into that week, they were actually pretty good. And I do think that when Corey makes that deal with Adam and, he says, hey, don't nominate me and Sam, that's the deal. I think she's loyal to that at that very moment. I really do feel like she is, that she will go with that. Otherwise, I don't feel like she necessarily says that. And then, that's when Anthony brings her this information. And then, and Anthony has previously set up his pieces on the chessboard with, where he wants people to say and what information they have and how it can be corroborated with him insofar as who was the problem. Who was behind the backdoor plan to get Corey out? Sam. And everyone's saying Sam. Damien's saying Sam. So then Corey goes after Sam, and then she's out of the house. So if not for Anthony's brilliance, I do think that Sam would have been a massive force in the house. So I think a 6 is worthy here.
There you go. So next up, we have Corey.
That dry humor, Taran.
It's the dry humor. It's also the sickness. My voice completely went out when I was talking to Adam and Sam last night. I was like coughing. I was like, oh, sorry, I can't. I'm so sorry.
How long did you talk with them for?
It was like an hour and a half.
You talked with them at the same time?
Yes, I had them come on at the same time. I thought that would be fun. They've been hanging out, so they were very cute,
hanging out,
very adorable.
Yeah.
The couples of Big Brother Canada are some of the best. We've got Adam and Sam now. We've got Kevin and Peely, who are the most adorable thing in the world. We were in an Uber to the club, and definitely not having too many people in the car. And so Peely was
Karen loves that as
not
well.
sitting on
Loves
Kevin's
being in the new Uber car.
lap. Yes, I love Ubers. I love everything about them. And
you guys don't even
they
know.
were just like,
go tell them.
They were just like whispering sweet nothings into each other's ear. I love you, Kev. They're the most adorable thing ever. And then Maddie and Bobby, as they're pointing out in the chat as well, super adorable. I love them both so
Maddie,
much.
Looking fierce, Maddie.
Yes.
Ike and Dimitri's.
Yes,
Ike and Dimitri.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to see them
royalty.
interact, but Ike said that Dimitri had wanted to be at the taping and unfortunately could not be. He was busy with some work stuff, but they are also great. The Big Brother Canada couples, I feel like they can't be beat.
Good ones.
Yeah.
They're really amazing. By the way, like I said, Maddie, gorgeous. That blue on her, that dress fit her like a glove. The makeup was right. Girl, I give you a toot. That was a good look. What?
I thought you said 2.
No,
2 out of 10, and then I realized you said toot, and I thought that doesn't make it any better. I don't know what that means.
It's a
I
good
gave you
thing.
a toot. And there's a little toot.
It was almost a shoot, but it was not quite.
Okay, all right. So,
All right. Back to Corey.
It's fun to bring up references and talk over Taran's head and be condescending. I love it when I do it. It's very
Corey gets a 2.
Corey gets a 2
And a toot.
from Melissa. I am with you, Melissa. I also would give Corey a 2. I think that Corey maybe could do better on a season where she is not completely snowed by somebody like Anthony. But if there is somebody like Anthony, I think Corey is just prime target. She was
so enthralled.
so easily manipulated. And to hear that she was almost back on Anthony's side in the questioning tells me like,
but in fairness, though, but Anthony was on Corey's side, so I feel like that she has a correct read on that. In that, like, he wasn't trying to get her out, like he wasn't trying to manipulate her the week that she was on the block. Like he wasn't the cause of her going home. He was putting his game on the line. In fact, like he really did massive damage to his game that amazingly, because of the stability of the Pretty Boys, he was able to withstand. But the week that Corey went home was the weakest the Pretty Boys have ever been. Corey doesn't, I don't feel like, appreciate that. Maybe she was toward the end of the jury questioning, but that was true. So I don't want to hold that against her. Having said that, I agree with Taran that her inability to see when she's being snowed by anybody. I'm not just talking about Anthony. Like Kiki and Sam could snow her, for heaven's sake. You have to give her a bad score here. I'll go with 3 because I feel like her comp winning ability and her overall likability, to me, raises her a little bit. She played better than, she has more ability, I feel like, than people like Eddie and Mackie and Chelsea and all them. So it's a little bit of a higher score. 3 isn't like singing her praises, Taran.
Yes. The audience also went with a 3. A 3.4, though, a little bit higher than some of the other 3s. So after Corey went Esty, right?
After Corey went Esty, yes. Yes, in the double eviction.
Esty, who got a 3.3 from the audience, and lots of 3.3, 3.4s from the audience. I think I agree with this one. I think I'd go with a 3 for Esty. I know that a lot of people are very down on Esty, and I think that the biggest thing that went against her was the lack of respect that she was getting from the jury as they were coming out. A lot of them were ranking her last or second to last with Kyra. That's definitely something that would work against her. However, I think that in a season where she doesn't get railroaded by the Pretty Boys and she is able to work with somebody like Kiki or somebody else who's maybe a little bit better at the game, I do feel like Kiki was kind of the one. I know that a lot of it was like, oh, I should have listened to Kiki, but it's like, what? No, if you had listened to Kiki, you would have been in the same spot because Kiki was not saying anything better than Esty. And I really do feel like Kiki was kind of the one dragging them down in a lot of ways. And I did see some good stuff from Esty when she actually did the work. She had Sam and Kyra flipped against the guys at one point during Sam's HOH. So I do think, and I talked about this during the season, I do think that Esty had a little bit of potential. And again, I'm talking about somebody I'm giving a 3 total to. I'm not saying that she was good in any way. I'm just saying a 3 instead of a 2, and this is why. So that's what I would go with.
I'll say for Big Brother Canada specifically, I'm going to give them a 2. I feel like that if anything has been shown to me over the past 7 seasons, it's that in Big Brother Canada specifically, you have to be able to win competitions, and you have to be able to win competitions down the stretch. There's no way on heaven's earth that she could do that. She just couldn't, and the jury wasn't going to respect her. They consistently ranked her last or second to last on their jury forms. There's just please explain to me how a player like this is ever going to win Big Brother. And it's true that Taran says that she was successful at times when she flipped the girls, but she could never hold them. It was just glimpses here and there, sort of like with Kyra, where there were glimpses of brilliance, but glimpses to me does not a fully formed game make. And I know we're just talking like the difference between a 2 and a 3, but like entertainment wise, I didn't even get anything from her. So it's a 2.
Well, I can't say I think the way that she wins is the same way that Paris wins. I think that she was capable of winning some of those mental comps at the end. She came very close early on. She was in second place in the one that Chelsea won. And I do think she was capable in those mental comps. And because I mean, we thought all season long that Paris could never win any of those competitions. And then what do you know? So
there was somebody who thought that she could. I'm on record as saying that I felt like the comps were a little like we were over analyzing the comps. I remember saying that Derek won in a tiebreak against her. Like it's not like he's killing her. People said I was stupid, and then she won Final 4 and Final 3. Like I have that on tape. So that's one where I'll be like, go back and watch the tape. Girl, bye.
Yes. Well, the point being that I think that somebody like Esty absolutely can win those final competitions. Get a little bit of respect on her name. If we looked at Esty's game and Paris's game leading up to the finals, it might be a little bit similar. I think that we definitely saw a lot more from Paris, but I think that minus Kiki, minus the pretty boys, there's potential that we could have seen there in Esty. And that's why I gave her 3 instead of a 2.
I gave her a
between
2.
a 2 and a 3, but yeah.
So after Esty was Damien, our boy Damien. Damien's another one. I feel like he has potential, but I don't know if he'll ever be able to realize that potential because he's not going into the game knowing enough about the show. I will say, like, I talked to Adam about this. If Damien does not get picked for that pre-game vote and he comes into the house with Anthony, Damien is part of the Pretty Boys. And Damien is, I'm probably giving him at least a 7 right now, given his social ability, his ability to convince people that he was on their side.
And I think he would have been loyal, Taran. Damien would have been loyal to the soil, I think.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, well, certainly much more so than Mark. Who I think he would have replaced.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is how circumstantial this whole thing can be sometimes. But as it stands, it's hard to even justify a 4 for Damien because I just don't know that he, barring a situation where he gets dragged into something and they teach him the game along the way, I'm just not sure it's ever going to happen for him. And I also am worried that he doesn't have the killer instinct. As we talked about, he's very loyal. So I'm going to go with a 3 instead of, I was thinking about a 4, but I'm going to go with a 3. See, this is, I talked Esty up because I was almost at a 2, and I'm talking Damien down because I was almost at a 4, but you got to look at the numbers. Listen to what I say. Listen to the numbers. I'm giving Damien a 3.
Yeah, Damien's between a 2 and a 3 for me as well.
Yeah. So are we actually giving them scores or like do
just try to land on the score.
Okay. Sorry. I wondered if that was okay. I'm with you, Taran. I'm actually going between a 2 and a 3 myself. Or Melissa, I'm also with you. That, I mean, there was no fire here. Please tell me. Like, I don't even know how he got on the show. I mean, he's a great guy. I love Damien. I would love to be his friend.
Yeah, seems like a super nice guy.
Awesome.
But
he was wallpaper on the show, you guys. I'm sorry, he really was. Like, if you had 15 Damiens on the show would be canceled in an instant. He's so not good TV.
I don't even know if he did anything all season.
What did he do?
I can't even think of a single thing he did. Yeah, besides be nice and
like awesome.
rap, I guess.
And be husband material. Like that's all he did.
He didn't do anything the whole season except for like the only time I really was like, yes, there we go, was when he was mad that he was getting nominated or whatever, and it was like, thank you, finally.
For
but
having
other than that,
emotions,
yeah, he had the emotions, but he didn't do anything about it. So I was like, okay, cool.
I mean, I think, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say that he wasn't good TV, considering the fact that he was the fan favorite, not only preseason, but even all the way through to halfway through the season. I think really that he was clearly giving a fair amount of the audience something that they wanted to see, not necessarily.
He was representative and he was cute. Everyone else is like, well, look, Taran, you know this. Well, it's like the Rupert story of it all. Like
Rupert was good TV.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to make a distinction between the casuals and us. Like, as far as me watching the show and like the lifeblood of the show, it's staying on the air. The people who watch the live feeds. You are
the lifeblood of the show.
He was terrible.
Damien was nice to look at, but he didn't do anything, but he was nice, and people like that. They like where, a person's nice and good to look at and all that sort of thing. But is he a good player? Is he giving entertainment? No.
Yeah, and I completely agree. In terms of the game, he did not contribute much, but I can say for me, as somebody who's not a casual, I do like seeing people like Damien occasionally on the show. Just being nice people and being somebody that can be relatable to the audience. And I did find him to be, I liked that he was on the season.
Melissa,
the thing is that I'm fine with people who are nice. I like people who are nice. That's not my problem. It's not like, oh, he was too nice for me. No, I like that he's nice, but he didn't play or do anything. It's like he literally just sat there for a few weeks and did nothing. Like there was nothing there. Like if a person's going to be nice, that's totally fine. But then at least like try and play the game.
Yeah. I'm
like
totally with you.
Just like lived in a house.
Well,
Totally
I
with
will say this reminds me of the podcast last year at the end of BB20 where me and you and Rob, Melissa, were coming for the showmances on the show between Tyler and Angela. And
don't drag me into this. Don't you drag me into this one.
Like I'm sure, like shoving Melissa under the bus. No,
I think it was Melissa that said
no, but Taran was like I like young love in the house. Like it brings a smile to my face sometimes. And Rob was like, "Who is this person?" And I feel like that's where I'm coming from. Like now, where Taran's like, "I enjoy a person like this on the show sometimes," and the people in the chat are like, "What?"
I don't know. I do.
Taran has a soft spot.
I feel
like people who play the game.
I feel like sometimes the internet community and us as commentators, we get so laser focused on a very particular style of the show that that we leave out some of the other stuff that the show does bring to the table, and that is a more human element, and I do enjoy that element of the show. And so I do enjoy characters like Damien and you know.
Killing me, Taran. I enjoy
I'm
people
sorry.
who are
To be clear.
human. I enjoy humans. I like people who are nice. It's not about that. It's about like the fact that he didn't play at all. He literally just sat
I
there
hear
and
you,
then was
and
like,
I was
okay,
frustrated
it's time
too.
to
I
go.
was.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well.
And I don't want to get hate now because Damien's a nice guy. I don't think I'm not, now we're going to get this whole like, oh, you should have been nice thing. And like, he's going to be like, oh, you just had to be nice.
Don't piss off the Damien stands. Don't do it.
That's not what I mean. Damien's a nice guy. You just didn't play.
I know, right? Did you know that Rob did a survey about how like he's running RHAP, and I was like living for every Tangela stan that wrote in angry emails about me, like, "One lucky gay is terrible. You should really get rid of him." And then signed Taran Armstrong.
I did my best. I do my best every season. I try to write as many emails as I can. Hasn't worked yet, but we'll see. We'll get there. But yeah, that's it's the. I am being honest. I promise. It's I feel like people get mad sometimes when you don't dislike things that they dislike, and it's like, look, I like the things I like.
Yeah, he likes things he likes, exactly.
So then after Damien, we had Mark.
We had Mark. Yes, the first pretty boy.
Yeah, Mark.
Head first into good luck, man.
Yeah. Seriously.
For somebody who
Imagine
really doesn't
him not.
deserve it.
You imagine him not being part of the Pretty Boys. Like, I just can't imagine a situation where his social game is enough to like get him in with a group of people. Like, he tried desperately to fit in with people and they just were not having it, like AKA Kiki. Like, she was not having him. So like, if he wasn't brought into the Pretty Boys, like, I don't see him lasting nearly as long. I see people being like, this guy is like condescending and whatever, like, get him out of here. So if he wasn't in the Pretty Boys, I see a bad situation for him.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about how I feel like with Damien, if he was part of the Pretty Boys, I'd probably be giving him at least a 7, maybe even an 8. Who knows? With Mark, he was a part of the Pretty Boys, and I feel like giving him a 5 is kind of stretching it, but I'm gonna give him a 5. I did see some moments of, dare I say it, brilliance from Mark in terms of how he would maneuver people and how he would approach people. When he was trying and he was not getting in his own way, he had great manipulation tactics. He was very good at playing the Pretty Boys for a long time. The problem was that Anthony got him way too comfortable, and he got played by Anthony. And, of course, the rest of his game also, like I said, he got in his way a lot. Like, he'd make a lot of progress and then he would like stumble on the 1 yard line.
For those people who are saying that Mark doesn't have a social game in the chat, I mean, really, that's just not true. Mark had a social game, and it was there, and it was valid. The problem is that when he let his guard down and was just his normal self, people didn't like what they saw. Like when he was actually trying to do something and trying to make moves and get people to believe him and bond with people, when he was making the effort to play the game, I thought he was actually pretty good. It's just when he was just being Mark, like, and then there's Mark, it wasn't so good. And that's like, out of everything, out of all the criticisms we've levied on the podcast, I feel like that's probably the most cutting one, that just when you were your natural self, we didn't like what we saw. Sorry about it.
Yeah, no, I feel like.
And neither did the house.
There were moments where Mark was pretty impressive in terms of like, he knew to play to certain elements of people's personality or ego or whatever when he was talking to certain people, and was able to, I think he was the one who was like, look, I don't want Sam to go or whatever. And he said something and he's like, but if you bring this up in front of anyone else, I'm going to deny it, like, to the end of the earth. And I feel like that sort of thing is good because it shows that, like, look, I'm being honest with you right now.
Yeah.
But then the other person also feels like you're being honest with them because you're like, I never said that. I never said that. So both sides you end up looking good in front of both sides. And I feel like that sort of thing is like pretty impressive because a lot of people don't think that, and they end up telling someone like, look, I don't want Sam to go either. Like, I'm just telling you this, but don't say it to anyone else. And then they say it to someone else and they go, no, I never said that. Then they look bad to both people because then it looks like they're denying something to one person. And then this other person knows that they said it and now they're lying about it. So they look like a liar. So I feel like there is some moments of Mark being a good player and Mark having that sort of ability. He just wasn't able to make those social connections, I feel, with people. And I think he really lucked into this pretty boy situation. So yeah, I would give him a 5 as well.
Yep, me too.
And let's not forget that there are a few different scenarios where Mark does win Big Brother Canada 7.
Yep.
You don't have to stretch that far.
Nope.
He was
got a
planning,
little unlucky, to be honest.
Yeah, he was planning on taking Kyra, and that was looking kind of good. Dane was on his way out the door. If Dane wasn't such a good player, able to save himself from the brink of eviction, we'd see Mark in the final 4 with a very good chance to win either of those competitions because he did have his days down. Maybe not quite as good on the buzzer as somebody like Dane, but definitely was capable of winning mental competitions. And if he manages to get to the final 3 with Anthony and Kyra, I think he's won the game. I think Kyra, well, who knows? Kyra probably takes Anthony at that point. Let's be real. But if Mark wins, we lost Melissa. If Mark wins, then he takes Kyra and he wins the game. And if Kyra wins and has any semblance of self-interest, they probably take Mark and Mark wins the game. So and even if it's Adam and Kyra or whatever, then all he has to do is get there and beat Adam in one of those competitions. So we've lost Melissa.
I was joking in the chat that I evicted her from the podcast, but that is not true. I don't know what happened to her, but I'm sure she'll be back in any moment.
It ruined my layout. So now I'm having 2 of me on the screen in order to show Brent as a thing. Okay, there we go. She's back and I can get rid of myself again.
Oh, Melissa, do you know that you were gone?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did know you were gone. Oh,
yeah, my internet cut out and I had to try and get back on.
Technical difficulties. This is a Legna moment, everyone.
Yes.
Why? What happened?
You completely left for a little while, and then there were 2 Tarans, and I was overwhelmed.
No.
The audience gave Mark a 4.47, very very close to a 5, but that's going to be a 4 for Mark from the audience. After Mark, we lost Adam. The audience likes Adam. They gave him a 7.72. That's an 8
low.
average.
That feels low to me. I can't believe that's in the 7s. That seems low. Well, Jimmy, let's talk tea for a second. So I think that he was too loyal to the Pretty Boys for his own good, and that was the killer of his game, man. Like, he was trying to keep Dane in the house at Final 5 when really he should have been trying to evict Dane. Like, Dane was his biggest competition, and yet he wanted to be loyal to the soil. And he couldn't see past his own vision. But I will cut him a little bit of a break. because it was his vision. That's the problem. Like if it was somebody else's baby, I think he would have probably played a pretty a more straightforward game. But because this was his vision, I feel like he almost had to see it to fruition. Taran, like it seems like that's what was driving him. Like if he hadn't made this, I don't know that it would have been such a big deal. So I'll go along with an 8 from that the audience is saying.
Yeah, I feel 8 is appropriate. I think that he played a remarkable game. Competition wise was extraordinary. If he had cinched those last couple ones, it would have been even more extraordinary. He came close to touching Janelle's record. Nobody's come close in a very long time, and that's impressive by itself. But also, again, and I talked about this a little bit before the season was starting to end here, but I think his social game is underrated. I think that he really brought a lot of allies, a lot of people. He was really covering the Pretty Boys outside of their own alliance. I mean, if you think about it, the Pretty Boys won almost all of the HOHs, and of the non-Pretty Boys to win HOHs, there was Kyra, Sam, and Chelsea. Those were all Adam's allies, and he is responsible for making sure that they were reined in. Maybe not Kyra quite as much, because that was toward the end of the game, but certainly Sam and Chelsea. Without his influence, without his social game and strategy of setting the whole thing up in the first place, that those really could have been dangerous situations for the Pretty Boys there. So I think he does deserve a lot more credit than sometimes he is getting from some of the people who really just look at the competitions. But I think 8 is appropriate because of what we talked about. A little too loyal to the Pretty Boys. Probably should have taken Dane out if he had the opportunity to, which obviously he didn't. But that also kind of goes to show why he did get a little bit outplayed there at the end by Dane. So what are you gonna do?
And he when he let go of that HOH and gave it to Corey. I mean, that was such a massive mistake. I mean, because they could have ran the table. They really could have. You guys, Sam was a very competent player. That if Adam doesn't let go, I really wonder what the season looks like.
No, I'm very impressed with Adam's game. I do think ultimately he was way too loyal, and I think he wouldn't have cut any of the Pretty Boys, which I think he should have. And so I'm gonna give him an 8 though, because the whole thing with the Pretty Boys was all him. So I'm giving him an 8.
All right. Then we finally had Kyra, the last person cut from the game, and shockingly so.
Before we tell them what the audience gave them, I will just say this, that the one thing that annoys the living shit out of me is when people go onto interviews after the show and they finish in a certain spot and they say, well, I must have been doing something right because I made top 3. And that's what Kyra's saying. And I'm like she's like, well, people said I was weak, but obviously not, because I made top 3. I'm like, that's the reason you made top 3. And then they're like going, well, Adam would have taken me out. So I had to make the move that I needed to make. Correct me if I'm wrong, Taran or Melissa, whoever wants to answer this question. Do you think that Kyra's main goal during the last 2 weeks of Big Brother Canada 7 was to make sure Adam didn't win the game? True or false?
Do I think that Kyra's main goal was to make sure Adam did not win?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. I think
Kyra's main goal was to win.
See, once Adam got mad at them and blew up and was condescending to them and was like the Pretty Boys are, ruling the place and you won't have a chance in the finals, and they started to wrap their head around the fact I'm not going to have a chance. I have no idea what's been happening in the game right now. And there's 3 Pretty Boys and Adam doesn't want to take me to the end. I think that their view of things, I think they were so offended by the way Adam treated them when Kyra nominated Adam for eviction, as Adam should have been upset, but that relationship totally disintegrated to the point where Kyra's now not just not in favor of Adam, but they're anti-Adam. That's how I read Kyra. I'm kind of looking to see if the chat believes me, but maybe I'm misreading that situation, but it seemed like their primary goal was to get Adam out of the house, but they could never beat Dane. So what's the point? I just feel like the Kyra was trying to pick the winner of Big Brother. man, I don't know.
I mean, they did say that was one of their motivations, was that they were trying to essentially pick who they lost against. And so I would buy that maybe that was part of the motivation. We definitely heard a lot of pointed words toward Adam, and I did kind of grill Kyra about that in the exit interview.
Yeah, I like
One inexplicable thing, Taran. You haven't talked to Kyra yet, have you?
Long form, no.
Okay, yeah, like how did that relationship go south? Why did you feel like you needed to blindside him? Why do that? And then it did seem like Kyra, you were really like your personhood, your agency in the game was offended at the things that Adam said, and you were like, well, I'm gonna have the last laugh and I'm gonna get you out if it's the last thing I do. That's why they kept Dane in the game. That's why Mark was eventually eliminated. I feel like that's the way things went, but maybe that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think that they did feel very upset when Anthony came to them the morning of the nominations, and he told them that Adam and Dane were secretly working together at they had a final 2, and that that Adam and Dane, they talked about how to manipulate Kyra by bringing up Sam and all of this stuff. I do feel like they had felt included prior to that moment, and that they were included, and they were going to be the ones to get one over on those guys. And I do feel like they felt a bit betrayed by Adam in that moment, and maybe that contributed toward the blind side. And then certainly after Adam blew up, that definitely left a sour note in Kyra's mind. So yeah, I mean, I think there could be validity to it. It's not something that I ever saw them vocalize or anything like that, though. So it's not something that I would personally subscribe to.
What's funny is, I think if you the fact that Kyra got to the final 3, like, it doesn't matter. If you had asked me prior to Kyra's HOH, what I thought their rating would be for their gameplay, I would have given a higher score than I'm going to now. It's funny that at this, the further they got towards the end, the worse I viewed their game.
Oh yeah.
But it's true. Like, I used to think that they had a great read on the house, and if only they could get power, they would be able to do something.
Not
and
this
instead,
season.
they got power, and they totally blew it and showed me that they have literally no idea what's going on in the game. And that's where my opinion of Kyra turned around.
Can we talk this out real quick? Let's talk this out real quick, because Kyra's saying that the reason that I had to get Mark out of the game was because Adam was showing me that he was too loyal to the pretty boys and that he would have cut me at Final 4. So I knew that I needed Dane in the competitions to beat Adam. But it just seems to me like they just wanted Adam out of the game. Like, there was because there's no winning path at that point. But maybe like you're it's the fishback thing where you're the hero of your own narrative, and maybe they're thinking, well, if I go this way and me, Anthony, and Dane successfully get Adam out of the house, maybe I can take credit for that.
Well, I mean, what Anthony essentially pitched to them was, you can't trust Mark, he won't take you. Adam won't take you either, and Adam's going to be here no matter what. Now, you can take Dane. Dane might take you. You might beat Dane, and also Dane can beat Adam. He can take out the one person that will cut you, because, I'm going to take you. Dane will take you. It guarantees you at least second place, and you might be able to beat Dane.
I know what they said. I'm trying to figure out, was it a good move? Because I feel like not taking Mark, they're one person they could beat, and a person that they could that would take them to the final 2. I realize that you need to beat, because they're saying all over in their interviews that Mark would have never been able to beat Adam, and I don't think that that's true. I think Mark knew his days pretty well. I think he could have won that HOH competition at Final 4, and I do think that he could have had a shot at winning that veto especially with Adam's mistake at the Final 4.
I think it was unquestionably the wrong move. I think that there was not they took out the only person that would have taken them to the final 2, and that person also happened to be the person they had the best shot of winning against. So it was doubly bad there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so they could finish in third instead of fourth. Like, because Kyra had won HOH at Final 5, remember? So they were going to the Final 4 no matter what. That's the worst that they could do. And they made a decision where they really wanted to make sure they get to Final 3, but then once at Final 3, then,
Yeah, like the odds of
the jig is
actually
up.
winning.
So, like,
are
go for
worse.
the win.
Yeah, the odds of winning are worse,
Ugh.
but the odds of you getting to the Final 3 rather than Final 4 are possibly better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, who cares at that
Who
point?
cares? You don't get paid anything for that.
Yeah,
Third place.
doesn't
Third
mean
and fourth
anything.
pay the same thing.
They get to have an extra interview with me in person. That's what they were going for.
That's what they wanted.
Child.
So let's give Kyra the rating here.
Three.
Two.
3
Yeah.
from Brent. 2 from Melissa.
I give him a 3.
I'm gonna go with 2.
Okay.
I think 1 is not out of the question, but I do think that
it's possible.
I do think that Kyra was there is, for all of their poor game decisions and sometimes lack of awareness in the game, they're good at selling themselves. I think that the audience loved what they were giving them on finale night between like, hey, for all the underdogs, for people who have had trouble believing in yourselves, like there is something there that Kyra is able to tap into, and they do stand up for themselves in the moment, and there is something very admirable about that, and so I do feel like they are capable of pulling that sort of underdog Josh kind of win. It was just not in the cards today, this season.
Yep.
So 2 for me. It's a 2.83 from the audience. So that's a 3 average from the audience. Finally, let's get to our final 2. Anthony, our second place, our runner-up for the season. I can tell you the audience gave Adam a higher rating than Anthony. Anthony's at
That's
a
garbage.
7.57.
That's stupid. Audience, you're being dumb.
But that does average to an 8. But it was lower than Adam, which I would disagree with. I do think that Anthony, he did come a little close here to winning the game. Ultimately, when we look at the decision to keep Dane over Mark, I think we can maybe look at that as a potential mistake. But he still came kind of close to winning regardless, and we saw over the course of the season just how much control he had over the votes, over everything, especially when it comes to Dane versus Anthony. Anthony always won the argument, and maybe that's not always a good thing, but he did always get his way, apart from, of course, the Corey situation, which was twist influenced.
That's the thing, though. It's so intangible, Taran. I think we have to talk about this for at least a moment, because Anthony's control over the game was absolutely unparalleled. I mean, he won everything except for the week that Corey went home. Anthony, he was the king of the castle, and everybody else was a foot soldier. That's really the way things happened. He got his way from the word go when Mackie said, hey, I might put you on the block. And he's like, he just switched everything around. Like, Kyra was going home up until that point. And Anthony just flipped it. And from then on, he was in control. But he didn't necessarily play something that was visible to the jury. And they knew that they had been played, but I don't know that, against the flashier version of the game that Dane was playing, where he's winning comps and, having fun and being a wild and crazy guy and having an alliance. I don't feel like it was ever going to stack up in the end. I mean, I see that now. Like when we were doing our preview of the finale, I think I had it like 4-3 for Anthony. But, given his inability to prepare his jurors for their eventual, enlightenment over what he was doing. And as Ligori once said to me in a text, he's like, Anthony played a great Big Brother game, but he did not play a great Big Brother Canada game. Because in Big Brother Canada, you have to be prepared for the end game competitions, and he just wasn't. He had no chance at winning any of those. And if you can't win any of those, and you haven't won virtually any competitions before, the jury is just not going to respect you. Not in 2019. They're just not. Now, here's the thing. If Kyra wins final HOH, which maybe they could have done. I mean, I think Dane was going to always take that. But if Kyra wins, then obviously they take Anthony to the end, and then he wins. So then who's laughing at who then? So I have to keep that in mind. So he made some good calls, but he also made a few bad calls here and there. So I think an 8 is probably appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to give Anthony a 9.
Oh yeah, me too.
I think that he is very close. I think that just as a couple of minor tweaks to his game, and he would at least be a 9. The problem is those tweaks, they're not there, and they're never gonna be there on a first play at least. Maybe he can go back, and knowing the show more, knowing the game more, he can definitely adjust those. I think Anthony on a return trip could be very deadly if he's not
And
too big of a
fine.
target.
I think he would be fine. People were saying, "Oh, well, his game's up. He cat's out of the bag." Anthony, he could never do this again if he was in a Big Brother All-Star season. Girl, shut up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, Anthony was shown to be pretty loyal to the people he was working with. I mean, he was obscenely loyal to Dane, kept him in the house when he probably should have evicted him at Final 5 because of the bond that they had made. I mean, yeah, he was stabbing other people in the back, but if he has your back, I feel like he has your back. He also went to bat big time for Corey. Like, if I wanted to be in a foxhole with somebody and I'm looking at the pretty boys, obviously Adam's probably number 1, but Anthony's a close second, man.
Yeah, and like it shouldn't be forgotten that I went over Anthony's game, and they knew all season long that Anthony was manipulative. Like, from week 2, they were talking. Kaylin was like, Eddie would go to Kaylin and be like, Anthony, he's kind of manipulative. He's kind of playing all sides. And Kaylin was like, nah, that's cool. I like it. Chelsea recognized what he was doing. Kyra is the person that made everyone. Kyra is the reason that week 3 people were like, ring the bells. Anthony's dead. I had a debate with Kirsten on a morning update where she said, Taran, Anthony's not running the game. This is it for Anthony. This is too early to say that he's going to do well because Kyra found him out and called him out. And who is the most manipulated by Anthony by the end of the season? It's Kyra. I don't think that it's just knowing that you're being manipulated does not always inoculate you from the manipulation itself. So you do need to take that into account. And again, I've talked about this before as well, but people saying like, it's only because he's playing with weak players. It's only weak players that would fall for this stuff. But again, the way that he was handling Chelsea for a while was working for a while. Like, he does not go full force on people that he knows he can't go full force on. So he does take it situation by situation and person by person. So I don't think that he should be underestimated if he comes back into the game.
It reminds me of Paul when everyone was like, well, we know Paul's deceiving people. We know Paul's going against people, but he's not doing it to us. Like, we're his true alliance. Yeah. And that's what it reminds me of. Like, everybody's saying like, oh, well, we know Anthony's manipulative, but he's not manipulating me. Like, and that's where I feel like it's very similar in that way. And I mean, if we're going to talk about similarities, jury management, Paul didn't do it. Anthony didn't do it. Like, very similar.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I said, I feel like it's and it usually is this way. His lack of game knowledge, I feel like coming into the game, he does not know the show well enough. He doesn't know how to do the jury management. He doesn't realize that he's not going to have any time to convince people at the end of the game, and that's really going to hurt him. And even though he did come close to winning, it was kind of a specific case where we know that Mark would not have taken him. We know that Adam would not have taken him, and even if Adam did take him, or even if Dane does take him, he loses to both of them anyway. His only win scenario was Kyra taking him. That scenario was kind of hard to get to in the first place, but he
close.
Did. And he did come close.
Yeah, I'm still thinking when we were talking about, like, should Dane throw part 1 and get to part 2? Yeah, like, that didn't happen. And Kyra got to part 3. I mean, if there's any, I think about like Big Brother Canada 1, where they were like answering jury questions about what the jurors said on their pregame questionnaires or something, I think was what in Big Brother Canada 1 they were answering. So it was totally random. And Gary won that and beat Emmett. Like, if it was something like that, I mean, like, dude, man, Kyra, like, Anthony has a shot to win the game, and not only that, but maybe like sweep the jury, or at least like 6-1 with Sam voting against him. Like, that would have been so cool. But the way these competitions are designed, it's so predictable about what they're gonna ask. Like, a part of me does enjoy that, but a part of me really wants to get rid of that, because I don't feel like people should be able to like break the game like Kevin did. But on the other hand, that the game is broken, so get people like that out of the game. So I feel like it's a catch-22.
Yeah, there's so many minor things that Anthony could have done. Study more.
Yeah,
be better at jury management.
That's the one.
A couple of different things. He could easily be, I think, the best of all the players here. But as it stands, going into the game as he does, I have to go with the 8 as well. Melissa, what were you at?
I'm between an 8 and a 9. I'm really impressed by his game, and I thought that he did a really great job. It's really the only thing that's kind of bringing me down a little is the end game, which, obviously is important. But the fact that I don't even think he did that poorly in the end game. It's just that the fact that he didn't get any jury votes indicates that he did do poorly. So
yeah. Oh, God, thank you for reminding me of that. In his exit interviews, Anthony is asked, well, hey, you didn't get any votes. Are you surprised by that? He goes, no, I'm not surprised by that. Dane, he played an amazing game. He's the Prince of Kelowna, man. Come on. But then like 5 seconds later, he's like, well, I was surprised I didn't get a couple. and then like the real tea starts to come out. So like, make no mistake, I feel like he if you give him truth serum, I feel like he's really mad that he didn't get any votes from the jury.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's not like, I feel like he's, I mean, maybe you can co-sign this, Taran. I feel like that Anthony feels like if he says he's mad at the jury, that he's somehow mad at Dane's win, and that's not true at all. I feel like you can be happy for Dane and appreciate his win, and yet still be like a little forlorn that you didn't get votes from Corey that you feel like you should have had, that you didn't get a vote from Kyra that you probably should have had, that you didn't do better at this thing called jury management.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we were talking about with Dane potentially not owning up to things, I feel like Anthony was the person that I felt is trying to sell the same sort of stuff he was trying to sell in the house, outside the house a little bit, and I would love to. I'm excited to talk to him about his game as well, and hopefully get some more answers from him and what his thoughts were on everything. So, yeah. That's Anthony. Then we finally have Dane, our winner of the season. I'll start with Dane here. He's a 9. I think he's a 9 for me. Yep. I don't think he's in 10 territory, but I do think is. I do think he is somebody that, like, if Dane came back and did extremely well again, I think that you would then definitely, I think he's in that picture. Like, I think there are other winners that if they came back and did really well, I'd be like, okay, maybe they're better than I thought. If Dane came back and did really well, I'd look at him like in that top tier. I really would. I think that he has that potential. Can he come back and do really well again? I don't know. But for right now, it's a 9, and I was very impressed by what I saw from him all season long. His jury management in particular should be praised to high heaven, because it was incredible the fact that he managed to win unanimously against such a strong opponent there in Anthony, who, for as much as we can fault him for his jury management, didn't do a ton wrong. It's not like he totally trashed his jury management. It just wasn't as good as somebody like Dane, who did very, very well. He is at the top of the leaderboard for competitions. He is just outshining Adam there in the percentages for his 7 wins. 7 out of.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I thought you were done. I really feel like his toothless view of things, like his perception to the outside world, I feel like that really inoculates him against some of the maybe hatred or anger that the jury might have been feeling toward him. It's really hard to be angry at a guy who doesn't have teeth and is smiling at you. It's really hard. I'm sorry. I feel like that's a ploy on his part. He even said as much in an interview. Like that helps him to seem a little bit more like kind of a cool and goofy guy, and it's hard to really hold somebody's feet like that to the fire. So I do feel like that's a planned part of his personality. I also give him a 9 too. I think he played a masterful game, and my personal preference on how he articulates his game aside, I think that clearly one of the best games in Big Brother history, if not the best in Big Brother Canada history. It was so well-rounded. And although I don't think you need a well-rounded game, which is code for competitions, in order to be a great player, he was really great at all three areas of the game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what you guys said. I would give him a 9 as well. I think that had we got to the end and Anthony had won unanimously, I may not have given Dane a 9. Like, I probably would have ranked Anthony higher, but because he gets to the end, gets unanimous votes, you've got to give it to him. I mean, it's hard to kick all your friends out of the game and still have them come back and vote for you. So I think that that was impressive in and of itself. And the fact that he played so well and wasn't just, I don't feel at all that it was a bitter jury where they're voting against Anthony for Dane, against Anthony, and by I don't think that it was against Anthony. I think it was for Dane.
Yes.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will say, I think that if Anthony had won, I might have given him a 10. I might have. Totally. I think that.
Yeah. I so wanted that to happen, Taran.
But
if
I wanted our villain.
A 10.
Yeah. The audience is also going to go with a 9 for Dane, an 8.67 average rating. I just ran back to look at the old Tyler stats. Tyler got an 8.87. So Tyler had a slightly higher average rating at the end of his season than Dane is going to get here. But I don't know if that's right. I mean, I do think that if Tyler had won, I probably would have given him a 10. But he didn't.
It reminds me of Anthony, where it's like, if Tyler had won, I would have given him a 10, but he didn't win. So
did Dane play a perfect game? He never had an eviction vote cast against him, and of course he did hit the block, so I don't know if people count that as perfect game. But he won a unanimous jury vote, and he never had an eviction vote cast against him.
It was the third perfect game. Dan played the first one, Kevin the second one, and Dane the third one. No votes cast against him, and I don't believe.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't think anybody has won unanimously and had never been on the block as well. So. Cool. Something to consider there. But I do think, ultimately when it comes down to it, Dane, he did pull this win out. I would personally probably put Dane above Tyler there, because he won. He did not have as dominant a game, and this is why I didn't give him a 10. He did have to beat Adam at the Final Four in 2 competitions that were both pretty close. And if he doesn't beat Adam there, then he's in a trickier spot. And if he loses to Adam in the Final 2, that's not great. He was not in a spot like Tyler where he was in the Final 2 once they hit Final 7, and all he needs to do is not screw it up. He was not in a spot even like Anthony, where Anthony was pretty close to guaranteed Final 2 with a decent amount of people. As long as Dane or Kyra had won, he just needed to make sure that he got out the other people. Not quite as dominant there as Tyler, but he also, I think, showed more control over the game than Tyler did. So a lot of good things to compare here in all of their games, but I would put Dane as the best player that we've seen in a long time, and I would probably put him above Tyler there.
I would too.
All right. Well, speaking of Dane, we'll keep with Dane here. We talked a little bit about this on the finale, but I also asked the audience here, where does Dane rank as a Big Brother Canada winner? Now, we're not going to rank all of the winners. This is not that podcast. We'll have that podcast at some point. But for right now, we're just going to try and place Dane in the Big Brother Canada winner rankings. And the criteria here that I gave was, is he the best winner? Is he in the top half? Is he about in the middle? Is he in the bottom half? Or is he the worst winner?
And?
I would say best winner.
Oh, well, I know what I would say. I mean, I was asking what the audience said.
Well, I like to mix up the order.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, I'm trying to go over everybody in my head, and okay, Jillian, no. John, see, John's probably the one that I'm close on, but because he made the move that he needed to make, and I'd probably say that Dane was better because John had to have his hand held so much. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but he had the good fortune of being tied with Netta, and Netta knew what the hell she was doing in Big Brother Canada 2. Not so much 5. Shade. Sarah, 3, great social game, but helped by the twists. 4, yeah, I'm thinking that what? I'd agree with you that Dane is the best winner of Big Brother Canada.
I'd say he's top half for sure. Top.
So you do not agree?
Near the top. Well, I like Kevin. I think Kevin was a really great winner, and I think that he did a really great job, and I think that he fought his way to the end, and I feel like that's really impressive to me. And I just was really, I was really impressed with Kevin's game. But I think that Dane, like, I mean, I don't know, he took Anthony to the end. Like, I just feel like Dane did some things that I wasn't super impressed with. So I don't know. I like Kevin.
Ironically, if he took, I mean, like if Dane takes Kyra to the end, he actually doesn't win unanimously. He actually voted who goes against him. So, because Anthony would have voted for Kyra and Sam would have voted for Kyra.
I loved Dane's reaction when I told him that Anthony would have voted Kyra over him if he cut Anthony.
Yeah. I'm glad he gave an honest answer. I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
I like what Tara said in the chat, which is that Kevin had a strong house to go against, which I think is true. And I think he had more of an uphill battle for sure than Dane did, because Dane and the Pretty Boys were competing against nobody. And whereas Kevin was competing against literally everybody. So, and a bunch of returnees who knew what they were doing. So I don't know. I'm more impressed with Kevin's ability in that.
I will say this, if Melissa, I'd be with you in that. I would understand where you're coming from, but Dane had a massive moment at the final 5 where he was going home. He knew he was going home. He cried in his pillow that he was going home. And yet at the final 5, when he's the obvious jury threat that he is to win unanimously, and he does win unanimously, he somehow stays in the game. Like he gets people. It wasn't even a tie vote that he needed. That all 3 people wanted him to stay. It was just craziness.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dane did a great job, and it's a very close one for me, but it's hard for me to sit there and say he played the best game when I really am impressed with Kevin's game.
Kevin's was a solitary game, and Dane's wasn't. So that also, like, it's not exactly apples to oranges.
Also, I feel like we talked about how the Pretty Boys really ran the house. They had very little competition, which is fair. And I've talked about that argument before as well, where really good players tend to make other players look really dumb. That's kind of necessary if you want to display that kind of gameplay, is that other people have to be dumb in order for you to look that smart. So it's kind of hard to not have that argument be used against you when you play so well. But at the same time, it was all of the Pretty Boys using that, being great players themselves. And of the Pretty Boys, Dane also played them and beat them handily. He did not have trouble beating Adam. He did not have trouble beating Anthony. And I think that also says a lot about Dane's capability as a player there. And then also, when we look at, Kevin versus Dane, I think that, yes, Kevin was like more the underdog. He went against the whole house. But the way that I look at it is like, hey, just because he went against the whole house doesn't, maybe it was like more impressive to watch, but not necessarily like the best game, right? Like right, yeah. he had the whole house against him for a reason. So exactly. That's something there. At the same time, though, I do think that Kevin can win competitions much more reliably than even Dane can, even though Dane has the technically better record percentage-wise. It's because Kevin was throwing even more competitions and he was involved in a lot more prior to his competition run. And I do think that Kevin can probably win more regularly than Dane, so I might go with Kevin there. But the one thing that allows me to feel very solid about putting Dane here at number 1 is that Kevin's win was on his second try. You put Kevin in his first game, and he does not have that level of preparedness that he had in the second game. And so
that's true. No, I mean, that is true. It is true. I'm not set in my way, but that's why I just said, like, I think he's for sure in the top half, in my opinion. But I can't say for sure that I think he's the best winner, is all I'm saying. I think that Like, I can absolutely put him in top half for sure. I can put him in top 2 for sure. But I'm like waffling back and forth. But I'm not set in stone. And I'm not like, oh, Kevin definitely played a better game. But I would have to look into it more, I think, in order to fully decide. But I can see why you guys would put him as number 1. I do think he played a really great game. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal. Like I literally had to go through it and think. I'm like, is he really number 1? Like, really? And I'm like, I think he is. Like, how can I put anybody else above him? Even Kevin, as miraculous as that was, but it's just like everything else is so ill fitting, like his social game, and he made decisions that got him on the outs, and he was targeted for a reason, and he had to win competitions. It always was win or go home. Dane was not, he did not have, like Steve Moses always says, if you have to rely on a competition, you're doing something wrong in the Big Brother game. I don't know that it necessarily holds true with Big Brother Canada, but I do think it holds true overall. But in general, if you're needing to win a competition, you're not playing the Big Brother game the way it needs to be played. Dane lost at Final Five and still managed to stay in the house. I mean, I don't know if, and I don't, this isn't shade when I say this, but I don't know if you have an appreciation for that move as much as I have. Maybe I'm more awed by it because I was for certain that he was going home. But then as I saw each person, come around to the idea that he should stay, I was on board with their decisions, except for Kyra, when they were thinking about, hey, I should probably get this guy to stay in the house. Obviously, in hindsight, we know that Adam should not have been on board with that, and really Kyra shouldn't either, but their relationship had so disintegrated at that point, and part of that was Anthony's doing, so that's why he continued to get his way.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, if I had to place a bet, I'd probably make the bet that Kevin is a better returning player than Dane will be if Dane returns, that he can probably win more consistently than Dane. But as a first-time player, I do think that it's obvious that Dane takes the win there, and most people only play once. So
it's just hard for me because I do feel like him being in the Pretty Boys helped him a lot, and I think that that was just something he was handed, and I think that if he didn't have the Pretty Boys, I don't think he would have gone as far. And I think that with Kevin, he was by himself. And to me, that's really impressive to pull yourself out of a situation where you're literally all alone and everyone wants you out starting from like the get-go, essentially. And so that's why I was impressed with Kevin's game. If we're talking about like, I'm talking about it as like watching that win. And that's what I'm ranking it on. If we're talking about like, oh, we put these guys in a house, who's going to win? I don't know if I would give Kevin the win of that, but I'm just saying like in terms of their game in that the season as it exactly played out, that's what I was impressed by.
Yes. All right. Well, the audience did say with 57% of the vote, best winner, 57% say best winner. Then another 35% say top half. So that's like 90 almost 93% of the audience says either best winner or top half. There is like a 5% group that says middle, and then there are 3 people there that say worst winner. You know who you are. Stop that.
I think he does know who you are, actually.
All right, so that was that's Dane and his placement there. We also had some other stuff to talk about. One was, how would you rate the episodes of Big Brother Canada 7? The episodes of Big Brother Canada 7. The audience said 6.64. That's pretty good considering where we were at some point there in the season. I think a lot of people were like, worst season ever, give it a 2, give it a 3. And I was like, I think this is pretty solid. And I feel like it ended up in a pretty solid place.
It's about how you finish.
I
had this discussion with Rockstar on Twitter. It's about how you finish, because she's hearing from people left and right that Big Brother 20 was a slog. And I'm like, well, it wasn't a slog. It was only a slog at the end, but it's like in life, it's about how you finish. Yeah. People remember that shit. Yeah, it really does have a big effect.
The first half of Big Brother 20, I was like, this is an amazing season. This is so much fun. And then the second half, I was like, I hate this so much. And I think that has affected my opinion of it, because now when people are like, oh, did you like, what do you think about Big Brother 20? Was that a good season? I'm like, But if you had asked me in the first half, I would have been like, yeah, this is a great season. So yeah, it totally affects it. And looking at this season, I hated this season in the beginning. The first half was super, super terrible. And the second half was great. So now I'm starting to think like, wow, that was a great season when really I hated it.
It wasn't a great season. I mean, like, it was pretty lackluster. Let's be real. From an entertainment standpoint, from a game watchability standpoint, I think it was pretty lackluster. However, the predictability of it is somewhat cold comfort in a way, in a era where like shows are being set on fire around us. Mm-hmm. So I do appreciate it. And as time has gone on, it's been a week or two now. Like that, since he won, maybe a week since he won. It's been a week since he won. Wow. Yeah. I think this will age well.
Yeah, I'm looking back on it fondly, but at the time I was like, I mean, especially in light of other things that are going on in other shows, it's like you look back on it and you're like, that's a good result. That's a good result. And that's how it affects my opinion of the season. And honestly, it was not a great season, but throughout, the editing of the episodes was really strong. I felt like, especially compared to last season, where you really weren't getting the full picture of what was actually going on. This year, I feel like the episodes did cover the full picture. And maybe that's because it was way more of a straightforward game than it was last season.
Yeah, so in particular with the episodes, I thought the editing was so much improved from last season. And honestly, like, at points, very good. Obviously there are times where I'm going to be able to nitpick certain points I don't like when they cut in the middle of the action sometimes. But in terms of the sponsorships, are way more low key over the course of the season. The dramatic moments, they hit the right note. I felt like we got a very accurate story. I really enjoyed the episodes. I feel like toward the end of the season, we got some of the best Big Brother episodes we've seen in a while, if not for some of the great Big Brother 20 episodes. But between Big Brother 20 and I think this season, where we got some really great episodes, I think those have been the best episodes that we've seen in years for Big Brother. And I do think that Big Brother Canada 7 contributed to that. I'd personally give the episodes an 8. I loved what I saw from them this season in the episodes. I enjoyed it.
I'd probably go 7, but I can see your 8.
All right. The feeds. I asked, what about the feeds? How'd you rate the feeds this season? People said 6, 5.95, just shy of a 6 there for the feeds. I will also say I really enjoyed the feeds. I think that there were a lot of weeks that I really liked. I mean, starting right off the bat with Mackie. That was a crazy week. I loved that week on the feeds. There was the Kaylin week. That was also crazy. Kaylin, the vote flipping back and forth. You had Sam overhearing things. Kaylin coming out about her age. That was also a crazy.
Can I stop you real quick? Because on the Big Brother debrief, when Arissa came for Sam and Kyra and the way that they handled the whole overhearing the pretty boys talk about them, that cast wasn't ready for how much shade Arissa was throwing at them, under the table. You could if you were in the know, you could see it, but they didn't realize it, and it was really funny to watch. If you haven't watched the debrief, you really should. Go ahead. Sorry, Taran.
Yes. The Chelsea week was a little weird. I wasn't super fond of that one. But then after that, we got the Blood Veto week with Kiki, and that was kind of an interesting week. I enjoyed that one. Then we got the Sam week, where everything that Dane and Anthony pulled off. There was something that I really enjoyed about most of the weeks throughout the game.
It's really amazing to me how long Dane and this shows how good of players they are. That how long Dane and Anthony got away with Adam actually believing that they were not really the cause of Sam going home. They voted against her, but he didn't realize, Adam, that it was all a plan. It was all the fix was in, man. And he didn't know that they were part of this. He thought, oh, well, she's on the block now, and now they want to evict her. But that's they had everything to do with that. And they managed to make him believe that. And it's just amazing to me how he never found out about that. It just, amazing stuff to watch.
Yeah, and honestly, then Mark being HOH, the whole secret assassin stuff, everyone freaking out, Anthony flipping the thing back and forth, that was good. Then things did start to slow down for a week or two, for me at the very least, but then they kicked back up again when Kyra won that final 5 HOH. That was really great. So I have to say, I also really enjoyed the feeds this season. I would also give the feeds an 8 personally. I was really enthralled for a lot of the season, and that's not something I can say for a lot of seasons of even Big Brother Canada sometimes. So yeah. Then finally, overall, people gave the season about a 6.1 for the season as a whole. I'm happy with that. I know that there's been a lot of negativity toward the season. Like I said, I think I'm pretty clear at this point. I'm at least an 8 for the season. I really enjoyed it. I really found it both entertaining, strategically engaging. I feel like it's done great things for the show as a whole, for the legacy of the show, for the history of the show. I'm very pleased with how a lot of this came out overall. So I'm happy. I'm happy with the season. I am.
Well, I'm happy you're happy.
Yeah, I'm happy you're happy. I think for most of us, it was just a giant case of blue balls, and that's really how I felt about the season. I mean, I know that you're saying, this week was entertaining, this week was entertaining, this week was entertaining, but every time we felt like something was going to break, and we thought, oh, this is going to be it. And when we constantly didn't get our way, boy, that was tough.
Yeah.
And once we finally accepted reality that we weren't going to get it, and then I feel like things got a little bit better, and it was a little bit more tolerable, and then the end was interesting and very illuminating to watch.
Yeah.
So
I would say like the last like 3 or 2 weeks, maybe last 2 weeks, maybe I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks were entertaining. And then the rest of it was not for me, but I mean, the end game was great.
I really hope
exactly what I was hoping for. And so that was very fun.
I'm really
but the rest of it, not so much.
That Big Brother Canada does not make another decision to bring in I just don't cast any guys who want a guy alliance. I just feel like that just don't do it. I don't want to watch this again.
I don't think there's a problem with the guys alliance. I mean, we'll talk about it. I think the problem is the competitions, but we'll get there.
I love Dane backpedaling in his interview saying, well, we wanted 4 people in the alliance.
You're like, yeah, right.
I'm like, that is not how I remember it, honey, but you do you.
I will say, I think that you are onto something a little bit there, Brent. I really
very sensitive about that.
I don't care about like getting my way on the season. Like I usually I don't have a like super rooting interest most of the time. And so I feel like that's part of what enables me to enjoy these kinds of seasons.
Right.
And so I feel like maybe the select few like me are maybe feeling the same way. So hopefully you feel represented. And I of course do not claim to represent the majority of the fan base on this one. Although I can claim that the casual seem to have enjoyed this season, but apart from that, I feel like maybe that's the key there, that that people people have a rooting interest, and if they don't get that way, then they don't.
I know I
much.
represent the season.
All right. So then I wanted you to rank the players from your favorite to your least favorite. This did not really change from last week. We had Adam, Dane, and Sam at the top, with Damien there as well in the top 4. Then Anthony, and then Chelsea, and basically the same as before.
Who was the bottom?
Bottom was again Kyra, and then followed by Laura and Mackie.
Yeah,
yep,
Illusion City, man.
Yep. I wanted to know who would you like to see play again? And very, very unanimously, with
Adam
over 80% of responses, chose Adam as the person they would love to see play again, followed by Sam, followed by Anthony. Those are the top 3. Adam, Sam, Anthony.
I would agree with that.
I agree as well. Obviously, I would love Dane to come back at some point, but that's like all stars only.
Yeah.
Then we did get Chelsea was actually 4th. People would like to see Chelsea back. Then Dane
What?
was 5th.
Oh God, no! I'm not falling for that again.
After
Chelsea,
first.
but damn, no.
Yeah, then after Dane was actually, there was a big drop off. Dane had 25% of people said Dane. And then 11% of people said, I wonder if you guys can guess this one. Who do you think is after Dane?
I'm trying to go through everybody in the house. Who? Kaylin?
Nope.
Kyra
Eddie?
with the like Kiki.
Nope. I think Brent got it on the second guess. It was Eddie.
Yeah,
Eddie with 11%.
Yeah.
And then
Eddie had two good moments. He had like the premiere episode when he told Adam that you look pretty ugly, and then the finale where he's serving shade in that outfit. Like that was it for Eddie. Love you, girl, but that was a little bit of a gap there.
Yes, and then right behind Eddie at about 10% was Damien. That's where Damien fell there. So should have done this one while we were talking about rating the season, but where does Big Brother Canada 7 rank as a season of Big Brother Canada? I gave the same criteria for the Dane question: best season, top half, middle, bottom half, or worst season.
I'm thinking about Amelia Clark talking about the last season of Game of Thrones. Best season ever!
Oh boy, don't get me started on Game of Thrones.
Go ahead, sorry.
God,
interview man.
I have so much to say about Game of Thrones.
Bottom half for the season.
Are we talking about Big Brother Canada?
Yes, Big Brother Canada. Melissa's bottom half. Brent?
For what? So what are we talking about again? Sorry, I got off.
Season ranking for Big Brother Canada.
Oh, I don't know. Come back to me.
All right. I would say top half for me, for sure. Honestly, this one of the contenders for one of the better seasons of Big Brother Canada, in my opinion. Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I can tell you, 27% of our audience agrees top half.
All right. Well, who agrees with me?
25% agreed
Okay,
with
so
you.
your percentage
Bottom
is not
half.
that much more than mine.
I had
margin of error.
2% on you.
It's essentially the same. He acts like his is like, I'll have to tell you.
I took that. I expected this to be way worse. I did not expect to have a 2% lead. I expected to have a 20% deficit. But
I feel like that the show had a great ending with a great winner that people really like. Like if Anthony won, I don't know if people feel so great. I feel wonderful about the show, but like a lot of the fans really didn't respond well to Anthony and his villain turn there in the last half of the season. I think that helps, and also just the general feeling of like a little bit of unpredictability that was injected into the season at the end, I think also helps, and the stability of the franchise. Also the fact that no twists really seem to upset the apple cart. I know Corey went home, but that to me in the scale of twists in reality television is pretty benign these days. So like it was a pretty straightforward game, man. No Big Brother 3 shenanigans here.
Yeah. 30% said middle. So that's
I'd probably say middle.
Vast majority of people were over 50% were either top half or middle, and also over 50% were bottom half and middle.
Wow,
so
really divided.
So it's very very much in the middle. I really
Thanks,
expected a
you
lot
guys.
more worst season, but only 14% said worst season, and 9 people said best season. So good job, guys. Those 9
Good job,
people.
9 of you.
So this is a crazy one. I wanted to know because we had talked about this on the last roundtable. Pretty Boys versus the Brigade. Which one was more dominant?
Like no tea, but like I put out the poll, and even I'm in favor of the Pretty Boys, and yet the people on Twitter who follow me or in favor of the Brigade. I can only imagine what your poll was like when you put it out.
Oh, because my poll is always so biased in my direction. Except no, Brent. This poll was actually the other direction.
No way, really?
Yes.
Well, they said the Pretty Boys were more dominant?
Well, it was incredibly close.
Oh, okay.
49.45 to 50.55%. This is a difference of about 4 votes. The Brigade did take it by 4 votes, but this was a very close vote.
Wow. That's
Yeah, maybe it's because it's like my poll was just like click, and yours is one you had to like really think about and fill out. So the more learned people will take and evaluate it. I don't know. I mean, I
Yes.
mean, that sounds like shade against some of you, but it's not. I mean, I'm just like, people, it's one thing that like, even me, like there's sometimes like, if I see something like Taran survey, if I got time, I'll do it. If I don't have time, girl, bye. I can click a poll on Twitter, but actually going through something and filling it out, that takes time and effort. And obviously you're going to have a little bit of more agency invested in something like that. So you're probably going to give a less biased take on things. On the other hand, you give a really biased take on things.
One of my favorite parts is how Brent explains poll results based on the result of the poll.
I think I'm pretty accurate in this, but
well, you definitely did not have an accurate prediction. So we can move on. Do you think Anthony was robbed? I asked that question. Do you think was Anthony robbed?
Not now. I've in the light of day. No, I do not believe he was robbed.
Yes.
I thought he was at the time. Well, I don't know if he like. I felt like he was robbed, but only from the sake of like I wanted him to get a couple votes, and I wanted the jury to realize how much they had been had by Anthony, and they didn't. I never got my nut on that. I never got to see that they realized how much Anthony had a hand in their undoing. They totally dodged that humiliation whatsoever in the finale. For me, it was all about, well, Dane was the more rounded guy and we'll crown him. But like Anthony screwed you guys horribly. You have no idea. And I want my pound of flesh. Like I wanted to see them realize that he was their undoing, and I never really got that. So that part of me is, a bit misty that I didn't get that. But overall, no, he was not robbed.
Yeah. I'm going to agree on that one. And the audience did as well. 83% said no, Anthony was not robbed.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, no.
Yes. So there you go. Now this is one of the final questions here. Should the competitions in Big Brother Canada be altered to be more random? And this is what I feel like if you want to avoid a steamrolly situation such as the one that we got this season, I feel like the competitions are more important even than the casting in how we decide that. I think that we are allowing certain people to be too good at the competitions. Yeah. They are winning too many of the same people are winning too many of the same competitions, and it is not the best thing for the show, I think, to have that happen.
I never thought I'd say it like ever that I would want more random competitions, but here I am saying it. Now I have come around to it, and I think that there should be more random competitions. However, I do kind of like the idea of doing random HOHs, but then not random vetoes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people should be able to fight for the chance to stay. Whereas like if you're just randomly, doing stuff for the veto, like you throw a ball or something that has to hit in a specific area, like who knows with that. And that I don't really like that, because if someone really wants to stay, they should be able to try for it. And so I like those like how bad do you want it sort of competitions. Whereas like with HOH, I mean, anything should be able to happen. Like we should be able to get those like change ups. And I think that randomized HOHs are good. But I think that for vetoes, like give people a chance.
Melissa, Mindy Bond in the chat says, but the HOH not playing in the veto was supposed to prevent the steamroll. No, I think that's their question. I think the answer is that the production never cared about a steamroll. I think they were just screwing with things because they wanted to screw with things. Like they wanted more change up in the nominations. And if the HOH, who is presumably a comp able person, cannot defend their nominations, then it's more likely that the nominations will change and the veto episode on Wednesday will be exciting. That's where I think production's coming from. But I don't think that production gives a shit about a steamroll.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when we look at the answer to this question, people pretty overwhelmingly said yes. 78% said yes, the competitions should be more random. In Big Brother 20, we kind of saw a shift toward the Big Brother Canada strategy, where at the end of the season we saw something that was more skill-based than random, and I even asked the form for the end of Big Brother 20, not like 6 months ago at this point.
Right.
Do you prefer the new format of trivia, or did you like the crapshoot? And 70% of people said, yes, I like that there is more skill. I like the trivia.
Did you ever get a chance to talk to Trevor Boris at all?
No, not in Toronto, no.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm hoping maybe we can make that happen one day. But I don't want it to come off as like we're attacking their view of things, that this is the way they do it up in Canada. I mean, it certainly has its place, but I do think that there's something to be learned from the randomness aspects of it and how great of a product it could give a show. But on the other hand, unpredictability is an editor's nightmare, and maybe that's what they're guarding against. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it all season, but I feel like it's interesting having such a dramatically shifted response to that question in such a short period of time. But we'll see. We'll see if Big Brother US continues to move in this direction as well. And then finally, we do have to address here the stock watch.
Oof. Whatever. Taran won. We're all over it.
I'm just curious whether or not you beat Beast. That's the real tea.
Well, all right. Let's do this here. We'll start. Brent.
I sold everything and bought the only person that first of all, I couldn't win, so I bought Kyra, and of course they went down to 0 because they didn't win. So I ended up with no money in my bank account.
I think you got left with $2.
How?
Because you couldn't afford a final Kyra share.
Oh, fabulous.
And so
go ahead. Wait, what was the rule here that at the end you could keep your money? I didn't realize we had put in that rule. See, the rules were just like implemented.
You didn't realize. That was like the most discussed thing.
There was a constitutional convention and I was out to lunch apparently. So
okay, we'll show not only the direct messages but the various conversations on the podcast about this very thing, Brent. Not that it would have mattered anyway, because I could have even if we had the old rules, I had you covered, both covered. Regardless, I could have outbought all three players.
Melissa, how'd you do before Taran reveals his?
Well, I made the right move, but it didn't help because I'm pretty sure I bought Dane. I said I would buy as much Dane as I can, I think. But then I also kept my Anthony just in case, because I figured Taran would put his money on to Dane or something, and then I would have one all his bases.
Taran could literally buy the board.
Yeah, there's really nothing I could have done.
Yes, and I all I had to do was buy 4 Kyra shares, and I would have still beat Melissa if Kyra won. So that's what I did. I bought 4 Kyra shares, which I believe also tied me for second place in the Reddit stock watch, because Beast made the right decision to lay the buying down, and Beast decided to sit tight and bank all of their money there. So Beast is going to end up with the most amount of money overall. I believe that's on this tab here. Beast with 566. I would have liked to. I think next time I'm gonna enter anonymously on the Reddit, and I'm gonna see we playing not having to worry about Brent and Melissa. See if I can play for the win.
I like that idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
But congratulations to Beast. And then I there was in second. 448 is how I ended up there. And then in the patron group, our very own Nikki turned out to be the winner with $320. So there you go. Very, very impressed with Nikki there in the patron group. So
all right. So wait, let me go after these people in the chat. Okay. So if you're over the stock watch, and I see people who tweet me this and say, I don't like the stock watch, give us something else that you think that we can talk about for about an hour or so. Okay. Give us something else that we can fill Big Brother Canada time with, that we can give each person their due and talk about them. And also, just so you know, we're always trying to make it better. Are we not, Taran?
Yes.
And we if you have any suggestions,
right,
send them our way. Go ahead,
that was actually the next topic, because I did put a place on the form here, the survey, for you to submit suggestions, and so people did. So we have some suggestions or some feedback as well, because basically what I've been doing with the Stock Watch over the last few seasons is slowly introducing more and more complications to the game to make it more fun to play, and hopefully more interesting. And but at the same time, like, we started very simple because it's an audio podcast and we don't want to confuse people. And the feedback that I got was about 50-50, where people love the new version. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I love it. It's so fun. It's great to play, or even to just watch and play and see what happens. But then the other 50% were like, seems fun to play, but I could not follow it on the audio. I did not understand what was happening. I would like you to revert and make it simpler again, because that was easier to follow. So we do have some things to iron out here. This is obviously an audio podcast, and I want to make sure that everyone is able to enjoy it and follow along at home. I don't want to confuse anybody or bore anybody with anything. I think that what we tried to do this season was limit the amount of time that we talked about the money part and just focus on the ratings. Everyone agrees they love the ratings. They never want the ratings to go away. But it's just the money stuff that when they don't understand it, they're not always on board. So, I think we've kind of limited the talk about the money this season as much as we can.
Fast, be like, okay, like I'm in, Taran's in the lead, I'm in second, Melissa's third,
Yes. Whoa, I'm in second.
Well, that's what
I did.
It was that way for most of the season. So
there was a lot of feedback specifically for Melissa, saying that they would like for Melissa to learn how to be better.
Wow, guys. Wow. Okay, look who got second place. Everybody, let's all be real here.
Yeah, oh my God, that's such a Kyra thing to say, though. Like, look at me, I got second place, even though I'm like $500 behind.
I got second place, so I must have done something right?
I would like to know how many people Melissa beat of all the people playing the Stock Watch, because I'm willing to bet she beat a fair amount of people.
Yeah, I'd probably be like 5 people?
No, it should probably be more than. I thought you'd probably be more than that, because I think a lot of people probably went all in to make a move, and they probably picked wrong. So yeah, I'm sure you'd be more than 5 people.
Yeah, and this is kind of the complication here, because I'm even seeing a lot of people in the chat like, no, I love this version. Like, don't go back to the simpler one. Like, the people that do follow along, that like this, they love it. This is so much fun. But at the same time, it is a little complicated. So we're gonna try and work it out. Maybe we'll have a more complicated version on the side that is not really as much a part of the audio version, but we can still maybe reference it. And then maybe have things a little more simple. We'll try and figure it out as we go. There are a lot of suggestions to comb through here, so we're gonna do our best. You are the priority always. We always want you to be able to follow along and to enjoy the podcast.
Oh, you mean you're talking to them?
Yeah, I would never say that to you, Brent. So we're gonna do our best. I think that the game version of this was the best it's been. I think that it was a lot of fun to play along. But yes, the audio, especially not being able to see things, and then also with so much money involved and how the price is changing so much, I can definitely see where it might have been a step too far in the complicated area of things. So we'll try and figure it out. But that's our season.
Yeah,
that's what we got.
It just dawned on me, like, because the chat's talking about the fact that Rob ended up, getting out of the Stock Watch. Like, Rob, would look at Big Brother Canada and be like, who is that? Like, it's been a while since Rob's been on a Big Brother Canada podcast. He's so busy with Game of Thrones and Survivor and Amazing Race. Like, Rob is a hardworking man.
Yes.
So I'm glad he's been able to get a little bit of relief and not have to also cover Big Brother Canada.
Alexandra,
Sorry, go ahead.
Alexandra in the chat says, Melissa, you would have been 10th in the patron group.
There you go.
Wow, that's not so bad.
I think like over 40 people played. So
not so bad, Kyra.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm the podcast's Kyra.
Don't worry, Melissa. You're a lion. You played this game.
Wow.
You should be proud of yourself.
I totally believe it.
Don't listen to anyone.
I believe it, but also this was my own idea. I am a lion. I have thought of this on my own. No one's convinced me of this.
Yes. I also had some Christina Z always analyzing all the raw stats from the season.
Yes, thank you, Christina. And Alexandra.
Alexandra and Christina are doing such great work. Looking
they
at
are
all the stats and looking at all the stuff. It's so impressive.
Yes.
You're such mentions.
Yes, they're great. Christina has some stats here. Anthony, despite not winning the game, was consistently at the top of the Stockwatch ratings. He's going to have the highest overall average over the course of the season, often beating Dane. Only Tyler had a higher percentage above his competitors throughout the season. That Anthony was very good over the course of the season.
Right. Even though Dane won the game, I think in watching the episode, I mean, Anthony was clearing away and control and far more insulated than Dane was. Dane was more exposed, especially in the end game.
Yes, Dane was the second place there at the highest rated above his competitors. Only about 50% of the time was he rated higher than his fellow pretty boys, but he did still manage to pull out the win at the end, and that's what matters. They pointed out that week 8 was the highest negative price difference between HOH and a nominee. Kyra was HOH and was $1, and Dane was a nominee and was $9.
Oh my God. That's so crazy.
And coincidentally, the previous leader was week 8 of Big Brother 20, when the price difference between Fessy and Casey was $4. So that went from 4 to 8 as a difference there. Wow. With the all-male pretty boy alliance running the game, week 5 of Big Brother Canada 7 saw the largest historical average rating difference between those who strictly identify as male and female players at a 3.67 difference. So male players were rated consistently higher than the female players by an average of about 3.6. So the previous in Big Brother 20, the difference, the largest historical difference favoring women was 0.59. So we had a lot of gender disparity here on this season. That's not super surprising.
Not super surprising, Taran.
Then we have Dane and Anthony consistently scored 9s or 10s at a massive rate, higher than the rest of the players this season. They about 20% each. They got to 9s or 10s from the audience over the next person, who was Adam at 9%. And then this is a great little chart when you compare that to Tyler from Big Brother 20. He had about 40% 9s or 10s throughout the season. So Tyler had a lot of great ratings. And then finally, comparing ratings to each other, Melissa agreed with the audience the most. Melissa always won with the audience. 43% of your ratings were the same as the audience, but the people who agreed most of anyone were you and myself, Melissa.
Wow.
57% of our ratings were the same.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I know my people. They know me. I have my followers. Girl, bye.
Brent had the lowest percentage of audience similarities. 29% of his ratings.
Here to buy.
Melissa, who is really just across the board, was similar to everyone else. 43% with Brent, 57% with me, and 47% with the audience. Brent, you and I agreed 37% of the time.
No, here's to progress, Taran.
Let's try and get that number lower. All right. So there we go. That's really
a ton to talk about this season. I mean, I feel like we were in agreement about who was playing the best and who needed help, and I mean, I feel like the podcast probably works better when there's more disagreement. But even I could see the reality of the situation on this season. Come on, I have to turn to my podcast and get on board with that.
I feel like our ratings should have been more similar, because I felt like at least the second like half of the game, maybe a little bit more, we were all like, yep, that person's not really great. Yep, that person's great. And we kind of like had the same sorts of ratings and it kind of got pretty stale.
Maybe they're actually looking at the exact score. So if we're not in exact agreement, that's considered a disagreement. Like if you give a 5 and I give a 4, that's considered a disagreement.
I guess that's true. There was a few of that where it was like we knew they were in the top half or we knew they were in the bottom half, but we weren't like totally set on what the exact number is.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's our season. You know, for whatever you thought about the season on TV, I feel like this was one of the best seasons for the coverage of the show. I really enjoyed it. I think that we really had a really great time across the whole season. So thank you for everyone that is stuck around for the coverage, if not the show. And I hope you enjoyed this. I really do feel like this was a great season for the podcast, and I really enjoyed it, and I know I've seen a lot of similar sentiment out there as well. So again, thank you for all of the support along the way. Just over a month until Big Brother 21.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I'm excited for the
ready to leave BB20 in the dust.
Yeah.
BB21 coming up.
Let's do it.
It's crazy. We are going to do a season rankings podcast very soon. So keep on the lookout for that. We're going to go over all of the Big Brother North American seasons. We're going to stick to US in the initial podcast, and then we're going to do another one for the Canadian seasons as well and put those into the rankings as a whole to give one big master list of all the seasons. And this should be a fun one because this is completely subjective. There's no right answer. So you can be
unless you're Taran.
As wrong as Brent wants to be. Exactly. He's totally allowed.
Boys. Oh boys.
I get a vote.
So that should be fun, and unlike the previous ranking podcasts that we've done in the past, there will be audience participation now because we've got these forms. So I'm gonna let the audience give their rankings as well. So that should be a lot of fun too. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so that's what we have for you. I once again hope you have enjoyed the season. I will be, hopefully the Adam and Sam interview will be released very soon. I'll be talking to Dane and then hopefully Anthony as well in the near future. So you've got that to look forward to. You've got the season rankings stuff as well. If you want to hear us talk about Survivor and it's not too late for Brent, we might be on Twitch.
I'm good. I can give you guys a half hour.
All right, there we go. So find me on Twitch.
If you want to hear us talk about Survivor,
Twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. If you want to hear the Survivor talk, you can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. Melissa is it's Melissa with three of those A's. Yeah, I think that's everything. So
on to Big Brother 21.
On to Big Brother 21. Thank you once again. I'm honestly and genuinely touched. There were so many messages sent to me, in Toronto. People, saying that they're happy to see me there, and that they've loved the coverage, and that they're proud of me for getting there, and it really touched me. So thank you so much to all of you guys. It really means a lot. I'm truly living a dream, and it's all
Yay!
because of you. So yes,
no, I'm for real going yay. like Taran, you deserve that. You worked really hard this season. Like you do stuff that I just cannot do.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to get up every day and have to be caught up, ready to go on the feeds at 10 a.m. in the morning or noon or whenever the hell you're doing it. Like you do really great work, so you should be applauded for that.
Definitely.
All
Definitely.
I mean, who else is doing stuff like this? Nobody
Plus,
else
you've been
is doing
hosting all the podcasts. You've been hosting all the podcasts too,
Yes.
for the Canada.
And by the way, just to plug really quickly, twitch.tv/
Taran Armstrong.
It's Taran Armstrong, not Armstrong Taran stacked.
You can
So
also find it
twitch.tv.
on my Twitter page. There's a link in the bio.
Also, if you've never, just to get people to come over there, if you've never seen me and Taran on a Twitch when we're even more casual than we are here, then you're definitely missing something. So
Yeah.
check that out. If you want to talk about Survivor, come on over.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm
Right.
telling you. All right. So thank you once again. It really means a lot. Everything that you guys have been doing across the entire season, and we will see you very soon for Big Brother 21. Looking forward to it. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. So that's what we've got. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next season.